Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. Welcome to the Community Services Committee for Friday, January 27th, this is not the right date at all. It says 2023. We went back in time. That is a new accomplishment. February 24th, 2026. That's okay. Il est important de souligner que la ville d'Ottawa se trouve sur un territoire non cédé de la nation algonquine-anishinaabe. Donc, la culture et la présence enrichie et continue d'enrichir ces terres. We have no regrets, and I will ask the committee coordinator to call the roll.
Councillor Brockington. Councillor Brown.
Here.
Councillor Carr.
Present.
Councillor Hill.
Present.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Present.
Councillor King.
Here.
Councillor Lowe.
Here.
Conseillère Plante. Councillor Troster.
Here.
Vice Chair Bradley.
Here.
Chair Dudas.
Present.
You have quorum, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have no declarations of interest mentioned. Confirmation of the minutes for November 25th, 2025. Are those minutes carried?
Carried.
Right, thank you. We do have a response to inquiry on the stages of the Alexander Community Center renovation and expansion. No one has asked for that to be lifted. So is that item received? Received. Item 5.1 is Community Funding Framework Midterm Review. We don't have a presentation on this. I've received no motions. We do have one speaker, Mackenzie Blackburn. So I'll invite Mackenzie to come. And I understand, Mackenzie, you have some slides you've sent in? Okay, so we'll queue those up. So Mackenzie, you'll have 5 minutes. You'll see the timer on the side, and I'll cut you off at the end if you've continued, and we'll open up to questions, okay? So start whenever you're ready.
Oh, thank you. All right. Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Mackenzie Blackburn, and I'm here with my partner, Ana Perales. We are students at the University of Ottawa, and I'm studying environmental studies, and Ana is studying environmental science. And we're here today to talk about an opportunity to better connect our community that aligns with the objectives of the Community Funding Framework Report. Ottawa has incredible sustainable businesses, community gardens, and green spaces, but the information is often scattered. For the average resident or student, it can be confusing to figure out where to start or how to navigate these sources. Next slide, please. To solve these issues, we built You in Ottawa, a curated interactive web map. We map out local hidden gems from neighborhood thrift shops and repair cafes to accessible transit pathways. By categorizing these spots and adding navigation links, we've created an intuitive tool that makes exploring Ottawa sustainable and affordable, while also being easy and accessible. Next slide, please. We recently presented this web app to the Ottawa community, and their feedback really validated what we're doing. Students told us that they're actively looking for a centralized way to navigate the city affordably and also access sustainable resources. We also have a great group of volunteers who have stepped up, ready to help us expand this platform and build it out so it can reach even more people. Next slide, please. The Community Funding Framework Report strongly aligns with our work. The report highlights the need to support enhanced digital platforms and to build capacity for grassroots initiatives. You in Ottawa is exactly the kind of digital tool that supports these goals by connecting residents directly to community resources. Next slide, please. We are here today because we want to align our work with the city's vision. We're hoping to explore a partnership with city staff. Specifically, we'd love your endorsement to link, if possible, our web map on city community portals, a contact to help us keep public data accurate, and guidance on how a grassroots team like ours can apply for project funding during the next intake to take this platform to the next level. Thank you so much for your time, and that ends my delegation.
Thank you so much for coming in. I see you have a question from Conseillère Plante.
Hi, yes, thank you. And I might have missed it in your presentation. What inspired you to create this platform? What was the impetus?
Well, Anna created this platform, kind of like helping her market it a bit. But for her, we had a climate cafe at our Sustainable Development Center, which is kind of where students come together and talk about sustainable issues. And I brought up that we don't really know about sustainable resources in Ottawa,
Right.
like where we can find repair cafes or how we can like upcycle our clothes, stuff like that. And so we kind of identified that need, and then Anna was she had some funding or an opportunity where she could build a project and address a community need. And so she created this map, and she didn't really know how she could kind of take it to the next level. So I took a marketing class last semester. And so like, okay, I tried using my marketing skills to kind of take this idea to students who are volunteering and interested in the environment. They validated it. They said they also don't know where sustainable resources are, and they'd like to have like more of a centralized platform. And so now we're kind of figuring out how we can take it to the next step and hopefully collaborate with the city on it to expand it to other community members outside of the University of Ottawa.
And are you involved at all with the free store?
Yes, actually, yeah. So I'm a volunteer, and I sometimes volunteer with the Free Store, but I do work with the Free Store and the manager of the Free Store as well.
Okay, cool. Because my office is like obsessed with the free store, and we're also obsessed with all like the secondhand and consignment stores. So if ever you want to team up on that, because anyway, we have a total hate on for fast fashion. So if ever you want to talk about that or help contribute to those, because we have some amazing, amazing consignment stores in Ward 12 that are doing amazing, not just with like high-end stuff, but with affordable as well. So happy to chat with you offline if you want. And thanks for all of this. Is really cool. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful. We have another question from Councillor Troster.
Hi, thanks for being here. Really impressive initiative. I just wanted to offer a few other suggestions for funding. You might also want to reach out and partner with groups like Ecology Ottawa or like Environment Center. They might have small micro grants. Also, have you heard of Awesome Ottawa?
No, I have not.
They give away $1,000 a month, no strings attached, to the best project idea. And it seems like you could totally make a pitch to them, and that could give you some seed money. So I'm not sure about city funding opportunities, but I think if you reached out to some of those organizations, it might give you a start. And I look forward to hearing more because this sounds really cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Troster. Councillor King.
I just also wanted to commend you on your amazing efforts. I think that these innovative tools make services and initiatives more accessible to people, especially young people in the city. And so very appreciative of that. Building on Councillor Troster, I just attended, frankly, over the weekend, a wonderful showcase of youth projects that were highlighted and in terms of funding, funds were provided by the Social Planning Council of Ottawa of $5,000 each. So in a sense, micro grants to assist innovative projects, not unlike what you're bringing to the fore as well. So another suggestion would be looking at the youth initiatives that are supported by the Social Planning Council. But thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It's really that will really make a difference in the lives of many, including our youth, and we're appreciative of hearing about it. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you both for being here. That it sounds so exciting. I really can't wait to see where you go with this next. So you've got a lot of good ideas, and once again, I am excited to see how this thrives and is utilized by students, but also members of the community. So thank you for being here, Mackenzie. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Right. We have no further delegates, and we have staff here to answer any questions. Does anyone have any questions for staff on this item? Nope, seeing none. Is this item carried? Carried. 5.2, Community Safety and Wellbeing Legislative Review. We do have a presentation by staff, so I'll invite them to come up and get themselves settled.
Good morning, committee. Bonjour et merci de nous donner l'occasion de être ici parmi vous et présenter les rapports devant vous aujourd'hui. I wanted to just set a bit of context before the team launches into presentations on the next couple of reports. So today's reports really do reflect the intentional collaborative work that we're undertaking in community social services to strengthen community well-being, safety, and really drive towards permanent housing outcomes. When we heard about the closeout to the integrated transition housing strategy at the end of 2025, it was a real reflection of that kind of collaborative impact. So we heard about increasing our transitional housing bed offer by 700 beds over the last couple of years. For the first time in 5 years, we have a winter strategy that has 100 available spots every single night in our system. Today's reports continue along the vein of looking for of us not only fulfilling our legislative requirements, as you'll see in the long-term care annual report that reflects our compliance on our accountability agreements, but today's really about systemic change and responding to community need. You heard about the Community Funding Framework Review. And this funding system it's not just a transactional funding program. This is a foundational system of investment into the important social infrastructure of community nonprofit services in our community. These are the services that are contributing to community safety and well-being. You'll hear about our community safety and well-being legislative review update. And this again reflects over close to a year of work on behalf of staff and community partners, and to present an updated community safety and well-being plan that really confirms the priorities of the previous plan, but more flexibly introduces a 2-year action planning cycle and to help us strengthen place-based community-driven implementation of integrated community initiatives and plans, such as the poverty reduction strategy, among others. And then you'll hear about today a new unsheltered homelessness outreach model, a coordinated, more integrated approach to outreach that reduces duplication, improves information sharing, and strengthens person-centered supports across municipally funded outreach providers. And then if you look ahead to the joint committee that's coming at the end of next month with Planning and Housing, we're going to be presenting our 10-year housing and homelessness plan refresh, which will represent 18 months of co-development and engagement with community partners and residents. And then in April, we get into action with our family homelessness strategy update and update to local priority rules, which represents important action and action steps moving us forward to addressing really important shelter pressures and housing priorities. So these reports taken together really for us, it's a cohesive storyline, one that moves us from individual programs and investments to a system focused on sustainability, prevention, coordinated responses, and shifting from temporary solutions to more deliberate focus on long-term housing outcomes. And of course, we depend on other levels of government to get us there. So really, for me, I wanted to extend my sincere thanks to our community social services teams, our colleagues across the city, community partners, and frontline staff, for their dedication and expertise that have shaped this progress that we are proud to present before you today. Je tiens à remercier sincèrement nos équipes dans la direction des services sociaux communautaires, nos collègues de la ville, nos partenaires communautaires et le personnel de première ligne qui nous ont accompagnés à chaque étape. Leur dévouement et leur expertise ont permis les progrès que nous sommes fiers de vous présenter aujourd'hui. With that, I'll turn it over to Sarah Taylor and then later to Cale Brown to lead us through the presentations.
Thank you, Clara. Next slide, please. En vertu de la loi de 2019 sur la sécurité communautaire et les services policiers, les municipalités doivent élaborer, adopter et tenir à jour un plan de sécurité et de bien-être dans les collectivités, SBEC. Les municipalités sont tenues par la loi de réviser le plan de SPEC tous les 4 ans. Il est important de noter que la législation exige également que l'examen inclue la consultation avec des personnes ayant une expérience vécue et actuelle des services de santé mentale et de consommation de substances. Les exigences législatives encadrent aussi les aspects suivants: la composition des comités consultifs, la consultation pour élaboration du plan et la publication, surveillance, évaluation et production des rapports. Next slide, please. Since the plan was initially approved by Council in December of 2021, the community safety wellbeing team, community partners, and other sectors have laid a strong foundation to move the priorities forward. The plan really positions the city as a leader in moving from reactive responses to proactive, community-based solutions that improve well-being and strengthen neighborhoods over time. The progress we've made so far, some of it outlined on the slides before you, demonstrate our collective commitment and momentum towards lasting positive change and impact. Some of the highlights include through the poverty reduction strategy, we've supported over 6,000 tax filings, unlocking $30 million in tax benefits through the first year of Council's investment of $150,000 to increase coordination in the community. We've invested an additional $830,000 to strengthen food security agencies. As it relates to mental well-being, Anchor, which launched in August of 2024, within its first year, received 4,464 calls. 92.4% were resolved without police involvement. Overall, the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan and priorities have secured and leveraged over $40 million from all levels of government to advance the priorities. As Clara mentioned, following this report, we'll be presenting another key milestone around the unsheltered homelessness outreach model to better support individuals experiencing homelessness, as well as communities, all aspects of community, businesses, residents, etc. And we're continuing to work in a collective impact way with key partners across the gender-based violence sector, advancing the food security action plan, the financial literacy and empowerment work, as well as youth social development. And these are just some ways that the plan has been and will continue to make a positive impact and change in our community. I'll now hand it over to Sarah Mullen to talk about the review cycle, the findings, and proposed changes to the plan.
Next slide, please, Eric. Thank you. So now I'll walk you through the review methodology. Staff used an evidence-based approach to assess whether the priorities remain relevant and to identify emerging needs since the first plan was approved. This included a review of more than 20 community reports, as well as past delegations from Community Services Committee, the Community Safety Wellbeing Advisory Committee, and budget delegation meetings. That work informed a thematic analysis of community feedback, along with an interdependency and strategic alignment review. Staff also drew on data from targeted engagement sessions and a public survey, engaging more than 1,000 residents through this process. Engagement was intentional and inclusive, involving people with lived and living experience of mental health and substance use, resident and community association, business improvement areas, and community agencies, from rural and suburban communities to the downtown core. Next slide, please. Through the review, we learned that the first Community Safety Wellbeing Plan priorities remain relevant, particularly in the areas of housing, financial security, mental health, and substance use. Safety, affordability, and equitable access to services were highlighted as ongoing challenges. Residents also highlighted the need for support in the following areas: non-emergency and proactive safety interventions, initiatives that make services easier to navigate encourage collaboration and reduce duplication, solutions that build on local strengths and involve residents in leading place-based solutions, and initiatives that ensure Indigenous self-determination and explicitly include racialized, low-income, and other equity-deserving groups in design and implementation. Next slide, please. So let's turn to what's new and what's been strengthened through our refresh. Overall, the plan's priorities remain relevant, with 6 priorities that will continue unchanged. Those being discrimination, marginalization, and racism, financial security and poverty reduction, gender-based violence and violence against women, housing and homelessness, mental well-being, and youth social development. Staff are recommending a shift in the renaming of the priority Integrated and Simpler Systems to Neighborhood Solutions and Community Safety. This reflects a stronger focus on neighborhood-based solutions that recognize each community's unique needs, strengths, and context. Staff also clearly heard that system coordination is not a standalone priority, but rather a core principle that should guide how all priorities are delivered within the plan. The refresh will also introduce a 2-year action planning cycle to strengthen accountability, adaptability, and transparency. This approach allows for the city to adjust actions more quickly, respond to emerging needs, and report on progress more frequently, while acknowledging that community safety well-being priorities address long-term complex challenges. The new cycle also builds on the existing performance measurement framework, enabling more consistent tracking of activities, outcomes, and better use of real-time data. Next slide, please. So the next slide highlights some actions underway to advance the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. Within housing and homelessness, staff will advance the 10-year housing and homelessness plan, including the goal of ending youth homelessness, and will explore health and housing initiatives in partnership with Ottawa Public Health. For mental health and substance use, Ottawa Public Health will continue to lead and activate the overdose prevention and response strategy. Staff will align with Ottawa Public Health's anti-stigma initiatives. We will continue funding mental well-being projects and programs, including initiatives prioritized by Indigenous partners, and support community-based prevention outreach services such as Anchor and U-Home. Next slide, please, Eric. Thank you. For supports for safety and place-based solutions, staff will advance public realm initiatives to enhance public spaces for all, strengthen relationships between municipal services, community providers, and emergency services, review and update the post-incident neighborhood support program, align the community development framework priorities to the refresh plan, and continue to fund place-based solutions to advance community safety and well-being.
Next slide, please. In closing, our last slide just outlines a series of the initiatives and work that is underway, and with committee and council's approval, will continue as we move into 2026. So again, highlighting the progress against the Food Security Action Plan coming out of the Food Symposium from the fall of 2025, implementing the action plan with the gender-based violence and intimate partner violence sector that's been under development for the past 2 years, beginning the implementation of the unsheltered homelessness outreach model, aligning work with the community development framework as it relates to building this new priority around strong neighborhoods, the advancement of Anchor, the older adult plan, and continued collaboration between municipal and emergency services through community-driven safety solutions. and later in the year, continuing to advance other work as it relates to financial empowerment and the financial security priority, reviewing and updating PINs, and completing the co-design of a 3-year action plan for youth social development and building the evaluation framework for that. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, both of you. We do have a number of delegations before we go to questions to staff. So I know our delegations are present, so I know you guys will shift over. I'm going to first invite Thompson Toussaint and we'll go Francois. And I understand you have slides as well, so we're going to tee those up. Welcome. So you have 5 minutes and you can start whenever you're ready to go and when the slides are present.
That's not the first slide. Is it?
We're just testing you,
Oh, okay,
making
okay.
sure you're awake, had enough coffee, you know.
Hello and good morning. My name is Miguel Francois, and I'm from Deborah Dine's Family House and Confederation Court Community House.
Hello, my name is Thompson Toussaint. I am the Community Support Coordinator at Banff Avenue Community House. Next slide.
Our work focuses on children, youth, and families living in Ottawa's priority neighborhoods, communities that often experience higher barriers related to access, safety, and opportunities. Community houses are trusted local access points where residents can receive support without navigating complex systems. By being embedded in neighborhoods, we strengthen belonging, improve social and emotional well-being, and respond early to community needs, helping families stay connected to the supports that matter the most. Investing in this work strengthens equity and builds healthier and more resilient communities. Next slide, please. Community youth and support workers are often the first trusted connection for young people and their families. They build relationships, identify needs early, and help residents navigate multiple systems of support. Their consistent presence allows services to be responsive, culturally relevant, and coordinated across schools, families, and community partners. In many cases, they are the key protective factor that keeps youth connected, supported, and engaged. Next slide, please. An example I would like to give regarding leadership and civic engagement is a lot of the youth in one of my communities, they are always looking for jobs or experience. And one way we do that is I provide them volunteer experiences, so volunteer opportunities, and not just the volunteering, but we also set up one-on-one interview prompts to help them get ready for the real world and interviews such as that.
One thing I want to talk about is responsive support, where we meet clients where they're at. And with this funding, it allows us to have programming in the evenings where we can help youth who are after school or parents who are working and they can't come during the days and they can come during the nights. And it just gives more opportunities to community members. And yeah, next slide.
Also, for our social learning programs, we try our best to find recreation programming for them. In my neighborhood at Confederation Court, one thing that's very large is basketball. So we try renting out a gym and get as many youth there participating in playing basketball. And it's not just basketball. There are times if we have other youth who are interested in other sport, we do set up space for them as well. And that also creates time and space for them to meet other youth and build meaningful connections that last a long time as well.
And the real life story I want to share is how when you build positive and trusting relationships with community members, it can really make an impact in their life. And I had one youth who was struggling in school. He needed some credits to graduate. And because of the relationship I built with him, he came to me, told me situation, and I helped guide him through co-op. So he got a co-op at our community house. I mentored him and kind of gave him life skills. And I took it a step further by helping him apply for school, post-secondary school, which is something he did not envision for himself. And he is going to be a firefighter. And these are the type of stories we deal with daily at our communities. Next slide, please. So connection is at the heart of community and safety well-being. When residents feel connected to each other, services and trusted spaces, isolation decreases and communities become safer and healthier overall. Community houses strengthen these connections by increasing access to share resources, programs, and opportunities within priority neighborhoods. This work builds trust with residents and allows meaningful collaborations across partners and ensures supports are coordinated rather than fragmented. By caring for one another and working collaboratively, we amplify impact and create sustainable outcomes that align directly with the CSWB priorities, as you see here. Next slide. Sustaining the CSWB funding is critical because our roles in community houses are established access points that residents already trust and rely on. Without continued investments, there is a real risk of service gaps and disruptive relationships and increased pressures on other systems as youth and families lose consistent supports. Continued funding protects the progress already made, ensuring stability, coordination, and ongoing access to services that strengthen safety, belonging, and the overall community well-being. Thank you.
And you were perfectly on time. Excellent, excellent. You do have some questions, Councillor Plante?
Bonjour, merci d'être là. Premièrement, j'aimerais vous féliciter d'être des leaders dans votre communauté. C'est très clair que vous prenez ça en main, que les gens vous font confiance et que vous êtes vraiment impliqués avec les jeunes de votre communauté. Je trouve que c'est super. Et puis, tu sais, les jeunes ne vont pas aller vers moi pour du leadership, ils vont aller vers vous. Il y a deux choses. Premièrement, j'aimerais vous inviter à un moment de venir dans mon quartier. Moi, je suis le quartier 12, Rideau-Vanier, où 70% des jeunes vivent sous le seuil de la pauvreté. Alors, ça, c'est des jeunes qui habitent dans notre système de motel et ou des jeunes qui sont évidemment dans des logements sociaux, où j'en ai à peu près 1500 unités dans mon quartier. Mais deux choses qu'on est en train de faire et j'aimerais que vous venez voir vous-même, c'est on ouvre les gyms de 6h à 8h chaque soir. Comme ça, les jeunes peuvent aller jouer dans les gyms. Comme vous dites, ils jouent au basket. Ouais. Souvent, c'est le basket. On voit que c'est plein. C'est plein notre casque là chaque soir. Les jeunes reviennent souvent avec leurs parents ou avec leurs grands-parents. Et ils adorent ça et ça fonctionne très, très bien parce que les jeunes font confiance et les parents font confiance aux écoles. Évidemment, les jeunes sont là pendant la journée, alors pourquoi pas revenir le soir? Et deuxièmement, on est en train de transformer un stationnement dans un terrain de basket. Et on va enlever, je pense, c'est presque 40 places de stationnement. Dan, peux-tu confirmer ces 40 places de stationnement qu'on enlève?
C'est ça, c'est exact.
OK. Et puis, on va faire un terrain qui va être FIBA et puis 3 autres petits terrains pour les jeunes. Alors, si vous avez du temps, j'aimerais vous inviter à voir comment on fait ça dans mon coin. C'est pas parfait, mais on fait de notre mieux. Et on sait que la prévention, c'est la meilleure façon pour arrêter la tendance qu'on voit maintenant où les gens se trouvent sans abri, où les jeunes vont se virer vers des parcours qui ne devraient pas. Alors, j'aimerais vous féliciter premièrement et oui, je vous invite n'importe quoi à venir voir comment on fait ça au centre-ville. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Councillor Carr.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you for being here today. Proud to be the councillor for Confederation Court. And as well, I know you're not from those areas, but I also have Blair Court and Russell Heights Community House. So I know how valuable these place-based organizations are in the community. I actually, in another life, probably 15 years ago, sat on the board of Blair Court Community House. And so very aware of the fantastic work that gets done, very aware of the needs in the community. I believe that under this new framework, that will actually have, it will be more beneficial for the community houses in terms of having funding for a longer period of time and less time with applications. But we'll verify that certainly with staff during the question period. But I know, specifically when we heard the presentation, we talked about how important that place-based services are. And I see those directly in the community all the time. And so I thank you very much for being here today. You do really, really important work in the communities, particularly you mentioned youth. Excellent. Really appreciate you coming out today and sharing with everyone the important work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. Thank you very much for coming down today. It's, I always tell people who are considering delegating before us that it is absolutely worthwhile to come down. It's important for members of the committee to hear directly from people who work with some of the most needy residents of our city and explain to us how particular investments have real benefit. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate you actually, deciding to work and serve in these communities, because we need guys like you who are passionate, who are there because you care about the people you work with every day, and you can see that your efforts have results. So thank you very much for your service. As you said, we see investment results, we see care and concern lift people up. We see the presence of community houses that exist in our city are true hubs of the communities that they serve. So my question to you is, what's the key takeaway you would like my colleagues to hear from you today? If you could summarize your presentation down to a sentence or two, what is the request or what is the takeaway you would like to leave with us?
In a sentence, I would say just keeping this funding going, like we said before, it shows results, and with the funding, the results will become even bigger, and the impact could not only just go from us directly to one youth, but that can trickle down to others as well as they learn from us and then push that forward as well.
Very pleased you're here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair, and Councillor Brockington stole my question. So I just really, and frankly, it's really impressive, all the work that you're doing in the community. I really wanted to commend you for it because the list is extensive. As you were saying, access to resources and opportunities, safe, inclusive spaces, system navigation, leadership and civic engagement, responsive support, advocacy, or before us advocating for more resources, food programs, crisis support, and most importantly, in my mind, mentorship, working with the youth and showing them that there are opportunities that they can take advantage of and that they can be quite successful. And so, I think you answered Councillor Brockington's question about the funding. I see the importance of it. Having served also in a past life, not unlike Councillor Carr, on the board of the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Center that runs Carson's House in Carson's Grove. We see the tremendous impact of the work that workers in those houses are doing. So we just wanted you to know that you're seen, you're appreciated, and thank you so much for the investments that you're making in the community. And we hear you in terms of the investments that the city should be continually making in the community houses. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Troster.
Hi there. My name's Ariel. I'm the city councillor for Somerset Ward, which includes Centertown. And we have the Door Youth Center, which does incredible work, much like you do. So valuable. My question for you is how much funding do you receive from the city? And do you think it's enough? What could you do with more? This is really the foundation of community development, potential for youth, and also crime prevention. And I know that cities that have massively invested in the kind of work that you do have seen crime rates fall, have seen graduation rates increase. So I'm just curious to see, do you feel like you're fully fulfilling your mission? If you're looking for more resources, what are you looking to do with those resources? I'd love to hear your take on that.
I think for funding wise, we do best we can with what we have, but with more funding, we can do other projects, such as one project that Thomas and we do. A couple summers ago, we ran a basketball tournament for at-risk youth in community housing. and that went really well. And a lot of the response that we got back is them asking us to bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. Another one would be to kind of give them more, I guess, like learning things like, for example, financial literacy, to have more of those type of things to come in-house and give them more presentations about that, to learn like the small aspects of life that can help them grow.
And for your funding question, usually we can make a little go a long way. That's what we like to use. And the opportunities, if we were to get opportunities, is things like job fairs in the communities, because a lot of times there's opportunities and workshops outside the communities, and for a lot of community members, they're not able to go to these places, and to have more opportunities within these communities would be very beneficial to the community members living there. And that's something that we would definitely be looking for. And we feel like would be very beneficial for them.
That's great. Well, I hope you include those proposals when you reapply for funding, because they sound really great. And I just want to thank you for the work you do. One more question. How long have you been doing this work, and do you feel you make a living wage doing it?
For this position, I've been here almost 3 years now, 3 years in April, but I've been working in communities since I was about 16. I think it's good enough for me,
So
but it can always be better.
So you can pay your own bills with the salary that you make doing this work, or no?
I'm still young, so my bills are not the same as everyone else's, but I get by.
You get by. Okay.
But it can always be better.
You don't need a side hustle to keep doing this work so far.
No, I'll just say it can always be. I won't complain with whatever I get.
I'm not meaning to put you on the spot. I
That's
just,
okay.
we hear a lot from workers who do this kind of work in the community, that it's hard work, it's low pay work. So I want to thank you for that. And I think it's really incumbent on the city to help raise the wages and the working conditions in the sector, so that folks like you can stay on those jobs and keep helping people.
Well, I also advocate for other workers, like other position workers besides like my position. And I think they could definitely deserve more from what they do, because it's very hard sometimes, especially mentally, and the things you deal with. And sometimes people feel like for the work that they do, it's underappreciated. And I feel like their pay should be based off the things that they do, which is, there's a lot. It's hard. We had a list up there earlier, so you can see all the things that we do. And yeah.
I would also like to add some benefits as well. In this line of work, a lot of our positions, there's no benefits. So I know some staff, they struggle to get that. And when the position is kind of laid out to them, they'll look at, is there any benefits to this?
Yeah. Oh, so they have no health benefits in these jobs? No extended health benefits? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. We need to do better. So I really appreciate all the work you do. Thank you so much for being here and for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. You got a wide array of questions right there. Thank you for being here, and thank you for inspiring the next generation of leaders. You're doing a phenomenal job. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I will call up the next delegates. We have Odette Waitunza and Darlinze Cadet from Russell Heights Community House. So again, you have 5 minutes. Start whenever you're ready, and the slides are up. So.
Oh, this one is good now. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Odette Awaitunza. I'm a family support worker and a food bank coordinator at Russell Heights Community House. I would like to share some of the work I have been doing to support families in my community. Recently, I'll start with my presentation, then I'll go to the slide. Recently, I assisted a woman renew her permanent residence card, which had expired several years ago. She was in abusive marriage and she had a language barrier. Her husband did not want her to renew her permanent residence card. He told her it would cost $650 to renew it, which discouraged her to apply for a renewal. Because her status had expired, her children lost their daycare subsidies. They had to be removed from the daycare. When I spoke with her, I explained that the renewal fee was actually $50. I was able to help her applying and be able to get access to services for her family. In addition to this, I have supported families with ODSP application, housing review application, youth scholarship application for soccer, utility application, and accessing winter jacket. Also, I created a space for women in our community where it gives them the opportunity to learn about other support services and connect with their neighbors, make them feel safe in their neighborhood. Okay, slide 1. Who we support, primarily Black race, newcomer and low-income youth and families. Neighborhood with limited access to recreation, learning spaces, and mental health support. Children and teens managing school pressure, family responsibility, and emotional health needs. Family who rely on for guidance, connection to opportunity and services. Next slide. I'm panicking. I don't have to do this slide. Next one. So I don't have to. Okay, they told me I don't have to do this slide. Sorry, I'm panicking. This is my first day to do this thing. So you're next.
Is that on? All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Darlindsay Cadet, and I work as a child and youth coordinator and also as a community safety wellbeing staff member. I'm standing here today because someone once, hold on. Someone once invested in me.
It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry, guys. I didn't think I was going to be emotional.
Don't worry about it. Take your time.
They're getting you tissues and you've got this.
Oh, thank you. All right, can I just start over? Okay, so my name is Darlindsay Cadet, and I work as a child and youth coordinator and a community safety wellbeing staff. I'm standing here because someone once invested in me. And what we're able to do today is possible through your support and the community safety wellbeing funding. Thank you for being here and thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I don't just work in this community. I grew up here at Russell Heights Community Center. I used to live at Russell Heights, and the same halls that I walk through now as a staff member are the same halls I used to walk through as a young person trying to figure things out. So when I speak today, I'm not speaking from statistic, I'm speaking from a lived experience. During and since the pandemic, many youth have carried the weight of isolation in heavy and quiet ways. Programs have reduced, spaces have closed, and safe place to gather have become limited. Many young people, especially Black, racialized newcomers, and low-income youth, these programs are not just activities, they are a lifeline. I watch youth struggle with loneliness, anxiety, and uncertainty, and some were navigating school pressures and some were navigating responsibilities at home. Many felt like they had nowhere to turn. Because of the community safety wellbeing funding, we were able to show up constantly, not just once, not just for just one program, but every day. One youth I supported was facing eviction, And imagining a young person and receiving a notice that you have to vacate your home in the middle of winter because of the fear and the instability, and because we had created a relationship, she was able to reach out to me in the middle of the storm and reach out for help. And together we navigated the system and get her into her home the next day. This impact of community safety wellbeing funding is in our community ensures that youth are not alone in this hard moment. I have also supported young people walking into job fair for the first time. As me, I used to be nervous looking for jobs and looking for also doubting themselves. I stand beside them and I help them prepare and remind them of their strength. And sometimes not a lot of people reminds youth that they are strong. Our community also has experienced a lot of loss and grievance throughout the years. Through community safety and well-being funding, we were able to support families and youth during these hard times and this grievance time. Community houses are not more than buildings. They are an anchor for the youth that we support and the youth that we are continuing to support. These are places where youth feel seen and family feel supported, especially during this time where you'd get racialized in malls and places that are supposed to be safe are no longer safe. So our community is a place where they come and they spend their time and they feel seen and supported. The impact of community safety wellbeing funding is visible every day, and trusted relationship and open doors and guidance to the system that can feel overwhelmed and inaccessible. This work is about stability and about belonging. It's about equality. It's about ensuring that youth in prioritized neighborhoods have the same access and opportunity as everyone else. For me, being able to give back to the same community that helped shape me is a privilege. And proof of what consent support can do. Throughout sustaining investment, we continue to build hope, connection, and will change in our community. Thank you so much. Sorry for crying.
No, I'm so sorry. I think everybody wants to run over and give you a big hug right now, but you're going to have to do with a question from some counselors. So, Counselor Carr, you have a question, Madam.
Thank you very much for your presentation today. You did a wonderful job. There is nothing more valuable for us as counselors to hear the lived experience of individuals such as yourself. It's far more valuable for me to hear about your experience in Russell Heights and how you're contributing to the community than it is for me to read, sorry about to say this, but than it is for me to read a 40-page report. Because Russell Heights is in my community. It is a very important place. I once saw they were referring to Russell Heights in the newspaper, and they called it a neighborhood near train yards. And that just made me so angry, because if you go to Russell Heights, you'll see the amazing diversity, you'll see a united community, and you'll see all the hard work that's done by yourselves and your executive director, who I see in the audience, in helping bring community there. So you did an excellent job on your presentation, a great job in highlighting the needs in the community. One thing I would ask you is, you talked a little bit about the work that you do in terms of youth. You talked about some examples with women that you've helped. What is one, is there an outstanding need in the community that you see where there could be more investment, whether it be recreation, financial support services? What do you think we need to focus on? Is it more supports for youth? If you could just name one thing. I know there's many.
I think the biggest investment that our community needs right now is financial stability. A lot of our youth in our neighborhoods they are inside the impact of like housing issues. And I think as Dempsey just recently opened, I think there's a space for them to do recreational. I think in our community, we need more of a stability, more opportunity. Our youth are at the age where they're looking for jobs, they're looking for somewhere. And I think we need to offer that to them.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you very much. And yes, I'm very glad Dempsey has reopened. 4 years was way too long to close a facility near a community that requires support. But thank you so much. You both did an excellent job today. I'm very happy to
Thank you.
heard your presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Plant.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for your presentation. We come from very different backgrounds, but like you, someone took a chance on me when I was no one. And when, I also didn't have parents who had any connections and someone took a chance on me. That's how I ended up here in Ottawa. And I understood very viscerally that part of your story. And I just want to thank you for sharing it, because people don't realize how that kind of mentorship, or that kind of, when they see that little spark in you or that opportunity in you, that what it can mean. And I just wanted to, alongside our friends back there, I wanted to invite you to come and talk to the youth in my community. I think they would very much benefit from hearing your story and your personal story. I do this a lot. There's no cameras, there's no video. It's just, a candid conversation among other youth leaders. And I think your story is very compelling, and I think they should hear your parcours. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is in English, but
yeah, it's nice speak French too.
Yeah, OK, alors tu parles français. Bravo. Alors, je pense que c'est très francophone aussi dans mon quartier. Alors, si tu as l'opportunité de leur parler dans leur langue maternelle, ils vont vraiment bénéficier aussi, parce que il y en a aussi qui viennent des pays, comme Burundi ou Congo, où c'est pas nécessairement stable.
Oui.
Ouais, je vous invite, honnêtement, je vous invite tous vous quatre, là, les deux en arrière et vous, je pense que ces sortes d'interactions, on a besoin plus ici à la ville. Je pense qu'on est souvent isolés dans nos communautés respectives. Alors, si vous voulez venir n'importe quand, je vous accueille à bras ouverts. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. I just wanted to assure you that what you're doing is important, and it's as important as what paramedics do, firefighters do, first responders do, because you're there, and I'm just blown away. And we need you. We need people like you in this city. As this city grows, we need those that are out there with the helping hand. And in our vulnerable communities, I'm chair of Ottawa Community Housing, and I have a deep concern that, that the youth in our communities do well, and they can. They have a pile of talents, and I'm like yourself. So believe me, you're valuable, and you should be very, very proud. So thank you for coming out and being so brave to face us today. We're not so horrible, but it does take a lot of nerve, and I appreciate you doing that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. And I wanted to echo those comments of all of my colleagues. I really want to thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your lived experience. It's very important that we hear it. As Councillor Carr said, often we see reports, and that can desensitize because it can be impersonal. So it's very important to have people from the community, who serve the community, who come to us to tell us the real impacts of the investments that are being made by City Council. And you've done that so effectively today. The other thing I really want to thank you for, because I don't think we talk about this as much as we should, and you did touch on this, the impact of COVID-19, of the pandemic, the fact that as governments, notwithstanding the fact that we had to make decisions, and the province made decisions, and all, frankly, governments made decisions to keep us safe in terms of public health. We talked about social distancing, which you have noted led to social isolation. But one of the things that we don't often really talk about is the need to invest in social cohesion, so that we can really improve whether it's the mental health of our community. You're talking about economic development opportunities, employment, the social health across the board. I think that we need to continue to think about that in committees such as community services here, as well as public health, because these have had, this experience has had an impact across the board in our city, but have especially hit our youth hard. And so I think it is very important that you raise that. And once again, I really do want to thank you because I think that your delegation today has been highly impactful on myself and I know on all of my colleagues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Counselor. Thank you both for being here. As you can tell, it's meant a lot to all of us to hear your experience and your thoughts on the program and what's out there. So appreciate you being here today. We do have two more speakers. Actually, we have two more together, and then we have another speaker after that. So I will invite Carla Thior and Jade O'Days from the Ottawa Coalition of Community Houses. And I believe you also have slides as well. Oh, that's no problem. We're happy to have you.
Is sick. So the flu finally got her.
Well, please thank her for not being here to expose us to the flu. I've been dodging that thing for a while. Wonderful. So you're ready to start whenever.
All right, I am ready. So I do have a lot of slides today, so some I might just skip through. So if I say next slide, then we're just gonna skip through it. Good morning. So thank you for allowing the time to speak today. I'm here on behalf of the Coalition of Community Houses, representing 16 community houses across Ottawa. And I want to take a moment to express appreciation for the plan and the direction, as well as a well-consulted refresh. Next slide, please. So the 3-year funding has since been extended, which started in 2022. So 6 community houses were successful in receiving the funding. And then since then, 6 more community houses have received 3-year project funding through a similar project model. Okay. Next slide, please. So these are some of the neighborhoods that received the original funding. So we have Banff Ave, we have Blair Court, Britannia Woods, Confederation Court, Deborah Dines, and Russell Heights, some of who we were lucky to hear from today, which is awesome. And the next section of project funding was to Carson's, Foster Farm, Michelle Heights, Morrison Gardens, Pinecrest Terrace, and Winthrop Court. So 5 of those being the PQ group. Next slide, please. So community houses. So I just wanted to share this slide here. It's a simple overview of community house locations across the city, just for visual purposes, for those of you who might not be familiar with where everyone is, just to illustrate how we are really citywide and have a presence throughout the city. So each community house is embedded in Ottawa community housing neighborhoods. Many of them have been long-standing hubs in these priority communities, and they do all kinds of things for programming, food access, learning, relationships, mentorship, all of those things that you've heard about already today. Next slide, please. So this is just an overview of who we're working with in community house neighborhoods. These populations often face systemic barriers accessing formal supports. Next slide, please. So wraparound support. So this is kind of something that we've been hearing a lot about the past few years. And these are just some examples of wraparound supports that occur on a daily basis within community houses. It's probably, I would say, a constant thing. There's all types of things that are dealt with, and those who are working in community houses are able to adapt and respond to all of the different community needs that would be included in wraparound supports. Next slide, please. So meaningful youth engagement is a key part of how workers create lasting impact. Through trusted, consistent relationships, youth are connected to leadership opportunities, safe spaces where they can build confidence, develop skills, and feel a stronger sense of belonging. This work strengthens connections to schools, community, while supporting youth to become active contributors in their neighborhoods. Youth are not just participating, they're helping shape solutions to local challenges and bringing their lived experiences directly into conversations with decision makers. And a perfect example is what everyone saw and heard today. Next slide, please. So just a quick chat about the City of Ottawa Youth Forum. So an example of impact is the City Youth Forum and consultations. 90% of youth engaged in the consultations came from community houses, and 60% of youth leaders involved were also connected through these spaces. This highlights how community embedded workers create pathways for youth who may not otherwise participate in civic processes. Through this work, youth helped inform strategic directions focused on strengthening youth spaces, improving equitable access to resources and services, and expanding mentorship and workforce opportunities. Next slide. Next slide, please. Systemic level work and alignment. So we also contribute to broader systems change by participating in citywide tables addressing these issues. Since workers are embedded in neighborhoods, they bring real-time community perspectives into these conversations, helping ensure policies and practices reflect lived realities and respond to emerging needs. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick overview of some statistics. I'm not going to get into it because I do have more slides and I'm running out of time. But please take a look at it later. Next slide, please.
So I will ask you to wrap up. I'll give you another like 20 seconds or so.
Okay, 20 seconds. Okay.
So talk fast. Okay. And then I'm sure there'll be some questions for you.
Okay, sure. So I'm going to just skip to the end of, I knew I was going to run out of time. So why this funding matters. So this funding has been incredibly supportive in enabling community houses to respond to various needs in their communities. This has been directly and clearly illustrated by our earlier speakers. There has been significant, meaningful impact as a result of this funding. Am I out of time? Yes.
Well, we do have some questions for you, so I'm sure it's going to flush it out as
Wonderful.
it gets out.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. So your first question is from Councillor Carr.
Good morning, neighbor. Thank you very much for being here today. The first thing I'll ask you, is there anything in your presentation that you wanted to speak to that you weren't able to finish?
Honestly, I think it was probably fairly well covered off. I think the earlier speakers really fleshed out kind of the main message that we wanted to come here and send today, and just really emphasize the fact that the funding has been vital and critical to responding to community needs, and it's something that we really can't live without.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks. And we'll clarify the funding aspects when we have questions for staff, but really appreciate you coming here today. Can you just remind me how many community houses the coalition represents?
16.
16?
16, yeah.
So that's all 16 in the city, including the independent ones and
Yeah. So that's the ones under CHRCs and the independent.
both. Okay.
Both, yeah, all together.
Perfect. Okay, thanks very much, Carla.
He's being asked a question. I got to, sorry. Councillor Kavanaugh.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for coming out and showing us the numbers. I really appreciate it. Britannia Woods, of course, I'm very familiar with, and all the marvelous work that Mohammed Sofa and his team are doing there. And it's beyond just basic programs. It's counseling and that really reach out to youth and their families. So, but food security is becoming a bigger and bigger role. It wasn't meant to be, and it is a concern. And I just don't know if you have any comments about that, but it's really hard because that's not been the mandate of the city to have community food banks, but it's there.
Yeah, I mean, food security has been one of the main challenges, especially since the beginning of the pandemic and throughout. It's something I want to say that we've just been adapting to and responding to. It's a challenge, but it's something that is a need in the community. So we do our best to respond to it, and working with the food bank and trying to to make things work. But as far as space goes, it's definitely been a big challenge for many community houses to kind of balance that.
No, absolutely. I guess the concern I hear and is about stability of funding. That we need to know, not just for the next year, but for multiple years, so that you can do some planning.
Exactly.
Is that the case?
Oh, of course. Yeah. That's I think the reality across the board for all community houses, as far as, going contract to contract for staff, for funding for the community house, for everything. When we received the 3-year funding, that was magical because that period of funding wasn't as common as maybe, year to year. But of course, 3 years isn't, it's up now, and I don't want to say it's not enough, but definitely we would be looking for stability. We would welcome it and love that.
Yeah, and the workload has grown. No, I appreciate it. And of course, we depend on provincial help and sometimes federal help. So it makes it difficult for the municipal level, but I appreciate that we need to keep that funding stable.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your delegation. It's appreciated. I'm afraid to not intervene and jump in and let you go without holding the city accountable for the funding that is provided to family houses, because I think we need to have that conversation today. Can you talk to the funding that the city is providing family houses? What are annual increases like over the last, I don't expect you to recite year after year, but if we talk just within the decade, what are some of the monetary or the percentage increases that you're seeing coming from the city?
So if I'm going to be completely honest, this would be a question that would be probably best fielded by my colleague Beth, who is not here today. But, I'm going to say, of course, and I think that my response here is not going to be a shock, that it's never enough as far as what's required, especially with the demand that's been, increasing. I know that we've seen stress everywhere throughout the city as far as needing services, and community houses are no exception. Luckily we have amazing people that are very passionate and will do the work, but we always worry about burnout and, what is the breaking point for that? Because it is challenging work. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of skill. And, I think it would be beneficial to have the financial aspect represent that as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I don't mean to put you on the spot by asking budget questions. Budgets are dry to begin with, but I think for context and for greater awareness of all committee members, it's important for us to understand what percentage of family house budgets are provided by the city and what type of increases has the city provided when you look at all the challenges that exist. And we've just heard from delegates previous to you, the immediate impact every dollar has in the community. So perhaps that will be a follow-up for me after the meeting, but appreciate your delegation here today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll be happy to provide that information on follow-up.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the delegates. I'm now going to invite staff back. You're welcome to stay where you are or find seats in the middle, but I do think there's probably some questions for you. Do councillors have any questions? No? Oh, lots of questions. That's what I heard. So we'll let you get settled. All right.
Chair, we thought there was one more delegation on record, no?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, we do. Yes. Eric. Sleeping, my friend. Kala, are you still there, madame?
I'm here. I was just about to email Eric, so thank you. I'm glad someone remembered.
Thank you so much. We saved the best for last. There you go.
You're so nice to me.
We're going to start the clock whenever you're ready. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So good morning, everybody. I'm here in the morning, finally. My name is Kala, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Rideau Initiative. We're working to address impact of service concentration in Ward 12 through advocacy and policy alternatives. From that perspective, I wanted to just begin by acknowledging some of the positive changes in the plan, especially because I work so closely with Sarah and Kale on so many things. So the first is naming community safety. I know that you've listened to us residents in Sandy Hill and Lower Town delegate on how it's not even in the plan. Well, now it is. And I'm thrilled. And I think that sort of categorization allows us to go beyond streamlining and integrating city services, and it allows for the inclusion of a wider array of solutions. One of those solutions is geographic equity. It's a significant and welcome change. It signals that safety is not just about programs, it is about place. And that is progress to addressing the impact of service concentration and the toxic drug supply in downtown neighborhoods. But the equity has to be measurable. And so now I'm going to get into the more boring stuff. But right now, geographic equity is named, but it's not operationalized. Over several years, of course, a small number of downtown corridors have absorbed disproportionate concentration of high acuity services, shelters, drop-in supervised consumption sites, prescribed alternative clinics and pharmacies, and other frontline supports. When services cluster without distribution planning, there are cumulative effects. Emergency response demand concentrates, secondary markets concentrate, exploitation concentrates, and public disorder concentrates. That affects housed residents, people with lived experience, service providers, and businesses. There is also an important intersection between gender-based violence priority and the mental health priority, particularly as it relates to substance use disorder. The impact of the toxic drug supply and service concentration is not uniform. It's different for women and the two LGBTQIA plus people than it is for cisgender straight men. It's different for racialized and Indigenous people than it is for white people. When high acuity services cluster in small corridors, exploitation and violence cluster as well. We often refer to the most vulnerable, but the phrase can homogenize people with substance use disorder. They are as diverse as wider society. If community safety is a priority, then intersectional safety must be visible within it. So geographic inequity is not theoretical, it's spatial and it's measurable. As such, the CSWB framework needs to include mapping of high acuity service density by ward, integrated neighborhood level data across HIFIS, shelters, OPS, bylaw, and public health, thresholds that flag cumulative burden, and or an equity index that helps decision makers identify disparity before it escalates. If we're serious about geographic equity, we must measure concentration and its impacts. I also want to address the Downtown Safety Outreach Partnership. Coordination through DSOP is a constructive step. Centralization is necessary. I understand that centralization is occurring through the Unsheltered Homelessness Outreach Plan, which is a welcome shift to a coordinated and systems level outreach response across the city. But the performance framework emphasizes service user process indicators. There are no KPIs measuring impact on businesses, impact on surrounding residents, reduction in concentrated emergency response demand, or neighborhood level stabilization. A DSOP and a UHOP, I think I heard Sarah say, becomes more efficient at responding, but does not reduce cumulative burden in high density corridors, we will have improved process without improving equity. Community safety must apply to everyone, and equity must include distribution. Another important consideration is that people should be able to access services in their home communities. Currently, people accessing transitional housing in Alta Vista still have to come downtown for services. Currently, people accessing people who lose their housing in Canada have to come downtown to access shelter. That type of displacement removes people from their neighbors, their friends, their communities. Concentration in a small downtown radius is not inevitable. It is the result of planning choices. The CSWB plan is the right place to correct that. Within the 2-year action cycle, this plan should include a measurable service density and cumulative impact framework, an equity index or a geographic disparity tool, integrated data reporting across departments, and KPIs that measure neighborhood stabilization, including impacts on residents and businesses. Geographic equity has now been named. The question is whether it will be measured, because what we do not measure, we normalize, and what we normalize, we entrench. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kala. You have a question from Councillor Plon.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Thank you for what did I do? Okay, thank you for being here. Sorry about that. I just wanted to ask you, because I know you've been super involved in this issue probably since before 2020, even before the pandemic. And I think it's safe to say that things have not improved since then. I would argue they've probably gotten a lot worse. Maybe? No? They have not improved? Sorry, you're shaking your head. Okay.
No improvement. I mean, there's been improvement in systems, but not improvement on the street.
So broadly, 2 or 3 things, if you could speak to someone with a magic wand, what would be 2 or 3 things that could improve things right now, right away?
Opening shelters in every ward, small shelters that are hostel based, that give people an opportunity to learn how to do executive functioning, and do community level sort of, and build community among themselves, would be one thing. I mean, if the shelter is opened all day, that would be great too, giving some people a place to go. Everybody's always asking me, where are they supposed to go? I'm like, well, you know, if we had actual services available all day, because day programs have to cycle people in and out. But somewhere like Cornerstone actually lets people stay. You get a bed at Cornerstone, you get to stay at Cornerstone, right? If you have to be there, I think at 3 a.m. for bed checks. And if you're not there, then you lose your bed. All the other shelters, it's first come, first serve every day, as far as I know. So like there has to be a different way to provide these services that allow people to have access to them all day. And we also need to start addressing sort of the violence that we're seeing on the street before it escalates to things like stabbings, things like fist fights. Like we have to stop this. We have to stop it before it becomes sexual assault. And one way to do that is to really find out if the people are unhoused or just street involved. Because a lot of what's happening is predators are coming in from all over the city to the downtown core in order to sell drugs or to traffic people. And they are setting up tents, and they're doing this, and they blend into the population that is unhoused, and we don't interrogate that. And we need to find a different way to deal with this, because those people are housed. They're not the most vulnerable. They're not in that homogenized group. And we need to address that somehow. And of course, I'm working with OPS on that. Of course, I'm working with service providers on that. They know it too. It's just a matter of really finding sort of the right way to do it without causing harm to people who are truly vulnerable.
You always have the good answers. Thank you so much, Cal. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Blunt.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Kala. Yeah, appreciate it. All right, now we are on to questions to staff. Councillor Blunt.
Just don't want any feedback. Okay. Yeah, so I just kind of want to further develop my question that I just posed to Kala. So you mentioned that you had $40 million worth of grants that you've, well, I don't remember what the time frame was for that, but that you've received. And grants are fine, but those things are not sustainable, and people are more likely to report super positive outcomes because they want to receive the next batch of funding. And if I'm being really blunt, things are not better downtown. Families are fleeing. We have stores that are closing. We had some daycares that have closed. So can you explain to me the dichotomy between receiving all of these grants and things not getting better in certain parts of the city?
Thank you for the question. So for the $40 million, that has supported funding from other levels of government. So for example, the funding for Anchor and that specific program, or the funding for the unsheltered homelessness outreach model and moving that to a 24/7 model, which we'll talk about specifically. So you're absolutely correct that that funding has supported with a specific gap in the system. and is targeting one aspect of the complexity of what you're seeing downtown in terms of the intersectionality of financial instability, housing affordability, mental health, the toxic drug crisis, safety kind of conflating together. And so unfortunately, those programs themselves aren't enough and aren't sufficient and haven't had enough time to actually drive the systems change, which you're looking for to demonstrate some of that measurable immediate impact. We believe that through our continued partnership and work, that through things like within the unsheltered homelessness outreach model, where we're looking to ensure there's aligned governance between different programs and projects, so we're not duplicating the use of resources, but working more effectively with police, paramedics, community providers, that we'll be able to provide more clear data around outcome measurement in a very visible and transparent way to the community, while also creating a structure where there's two-way dialogue, where we can talk about where we are seeing improvement and where we continue to have challenges.
So I think where I'm having a lot of trouble, and I'm isolated. Sorry, guys, I'm not talking about youth here. I'm talking about adult programs. I think where I'm having a lot of trouble understanding is I hear constantly from service providers about, and you guys, about what the great work they are doing, and reports are written, and surveys are done, and the downtown is suffering. It is absolutely suffering. We had a murder at the Rideau Center on Tuesday. The Rideau Center has about $4 million of private security circulating at any given moment. And that really worries me. I want people to take our public transit. I want people to come downtown. I want people to want to live here, especially families. And so I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm not really seeing the tangible difference in the community. I had another email earlier this week about a family selling their home at a loss because they absolutely had to leave downtown. So I don't know what to tell you. I definitely don't think things are, $40 million sounds great, and I'm sure it makes for nice reporting, but it doesn't seem to be trickling down to where we live. But if I'm wrong, please let me know.
Thank you for the feedback, Counselor. We'll consider that as we're looking towards evaluation, towards future programming and reporting. I do believe that both in the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan report, as well as the Unsheltered Homelessness Outreach, we do provide data that has come from community about the realities that they're experiencing, and have worked to structure our programs and projects based on the feedback you just shared, as well as consistent engagement that we've heard through that, as we're looking to prioritize the work moving forward.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Cavanaugh.
Thank you very much, Chair, and appreciate all the work that's being done. And it's an unending task, and it's growing, and our city's growing, and so are issues. So I appreciate that this is complex. One success story is the Anchor program that is just getting rolling. And I'm hoping it'll expand, because I'm seeing the need in a place like Bayward. It's not downtown, but it has its issues. I've witnessed things firsthand, even just yesterday, of situations where I thought, this is not a police event. This is something that needs other help. So I just wanted to get a handle on when we can see, possibly, are we looking forward, doing strategies of planning about next steps on Anchor?
Thank you for the question through the chair. So we're very fortunate that through the 2026 budget, Council allocated an additional $700,000 to expand Anchor this year. We're continuing to work with the Guiding Council around the neighborhood selection, as well as then understanding what's operationally viable within that budget. And we hope to have more information, and we'll share that as soon as possible. In terms of a broader expansion citywide, as also part of the 2026 budget discussions, we were given direction to come back with a business case to council to put in place what is required financially for ongoing expansion. And we've begun working with the chief financial officer and financial services to begin building that financial case, which will likely be part of 2027 discussions.
I appreciate that. One of the programs that's been a success story in Bay Ward that I've seen up close, this is for youth, is the Neighborhood Ambassador Program. And I see it's mentioned in the report. I just wanted to get confirmation that we're going to see continuation. It's a partnership with BGC, formerly Boys and Girls Canada, and we have that right in our community. And I just want to know if this is going to continue.
Thank you again for the question. So the Neighborhood Ambassadors Program, as you mentioned, is currently funded through a 3-year grant federally through Public Safety Canada called the Building Safer Communities Fund. That grant ends in March of 2027. And unfortunately, we haven't heard from the federal government if there will be new application for call for proposals or they'll extend it. So at this point in time, we are working with the agencies on the program closeout, because we don't have another a transition source internally. There will be opportunities through the community funding framework for the agencies such as BGC to apply for project funding with the city. And we are also working with those agencies to understand and look at opportunities for applications with other funders as well.
So if federal
sorry.
government is listening right now, please continue this program. It is valuable, and we do need to see it continue. I don't know if we have statistical data to show the results, but I do believe that it's making a difference.
Thank you. And sorry, just one correction. The funding is ending in March 2026. I said March 2027, so within the next 6 weeks.
Actually, I was aware. And that's why I'm asking, because I'm worried about it. And I'm going to see a difference in my community because I'm going to have youth without those programs. And frankly, it's a little concerning. It just kind of, it wasn't a solution. It was, but it was in the right direction. And we absolutely need to continue these programs. This is so necessary. We just barely have enough resources for and places to have these programs, but we gotta keep them. I think that's probably the biggest problem is the stability of funding. We've heard this from the community houses. They have to know what they're going to get so they can make plans, multi-year plans. And I certainly hear that from Britannia Woods and the other community houses that stability is super important to plan. We all need planning opportunities. And as chair of Ottawa Community Housing, I get an opportunity to see across the city, and I see the difference it makes. So these are super, super important, and appreciate the work that's being done. Food insecurity is probably the one that concerns me right now, and it's a difficult one when we don't have, the space, and we weren't designed for this. This is the issue that I see. We talk about it in the report, but what can we actually do in terms of moving in the right direction?
Thank you for the question. So in terms of food insecurity, there are a couple of key pieces. One, for the past 3 years, council has approved an additional increase to agencies supporting food insecurity initiatives and direct food delivery. So emergency food covers, food banks, a proportion of, for example, with the community houses, a portion of their programming that's going to food security. So that has been above just the COLA or cost of living increase that sustainability funded agencies receive. The second piece is work that's going to look at food insecurity from a more policy lens. So the staff held in partnership with the Pillar Working Group as part of the Poverty Reduction Strategy, a food symposium in the fall of 2025. Where a number of initiatives have been identified out of that. One, for example, is applying a food lens to municipal policy, which Ottawa Public Health has taken a lead on, and we're beginning to define a plan and start to implement that work this year. And the Food Pillar Working Group is finalizing an advocacy strategy to advocate with the province as well as the Government of Canada in documenting different municipal advocacy efforts across the city, aligned to things like Food Secure Canada, Feed Ontario, A Right to Food, Disability Without Poverty, and the Milan Urban Food Pact.
Thank you. It's not what, we were planning to do, but it's a direction that is just overwhelming because food is super expensive and it's a huge distraction in terms of all the other things that we're trying to do, but it's necessary. And one of the biggest things I hear is the lack of space to, if you're running a food cupboard, community houses are literally overwhelmed, and they were never set up to do this. So it's something we have to think about, and we have to look at partners to work on this. Anyway, I just want to end, but appreciate all the work that's being done, particularly in housing, and the work that's being done in terms of the transitional housing. I'm looking forward to seeing more opportunities for families. But obviously, the end goal is to get them in permanent housing, and I hope that the city will consider that the absolute priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Troster.
Thank you so much. And once again, thank you for all of your incredible work. And to all of the community partners who are here, we really value what you do. Just for folks who might be watching at home or in a gallery who don't have the report in front of them, what is the funding envelope to fund the community and safety well-being plan? The total number. Do we have a sense?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So when the plan was approved by Council in December of 2021, that came with a complement of 4 permanent staff to support the plan, as well as $250,000 to support its implementation. Since that time, staff have been working on different financial strategies, such as applications to grants at other levels of government, as well as bringing forward concrete actions and projects for municipal council to fund. So, for example, the $150,000 that has gone to support tax income clinics last year. And so there's a number of project stream fundings. In addition to that, the $32 million investment through the community funding framework is strongly aligned with the priorities of the community safety wellbeing plan as it relates to poverty reduction, food security, youth, and otherwise.
So that's the funding envelope that's funding the community houses that folks came to talk about today.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And how much of a increase did that funding framework receive in the 2026 budget?
So the sustainability funding stream within the community funding framework receives a cost of living increase that's set by council in the budget direction. So last year that was 2.5%. And that's applied and flowed through to those agencies. The one exception was the additional increase for food security programming, which was above that amount.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to point out that the Ottawa Police received a 5% funding increase, and this community safety and wellbeing initiative received a 2.5% increase. And we're hearing from the wonderful folks who came to committee today about how important this work is, how people are underpaid, about how staff don't have benefits, about the rate of burnout. I value this work so much, but I don't think that we're showing that we value it with the level of funding that we're providing. So I am incredibly thankful for all the work that everyone's doing. But I think what we fund shows who we are. And I think we can do better. Thank you very much.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you very much. I just have a quick question to staff with respect to the funding for the community houses. We heard from a number of them today. Under the new framework, can you explain what will change in terms of their application process, length of the funding, that sort of stuff? What are the implications?
Thank you for the question. So currently the community houses receive funding from two streams. There's sustainability funding where the 16 community houses receive $2.7 million annually. And the sustainability fund is 5-year funding that supports with operational needs. The application for the sustainability fund will open again in 2027, giving staff time to implement the recommendations from the community funding framework midpoint review that committee saw before this report. The second funding streams they receive are project funding, which is what you heard more specifically about today. So the community safety wellbeing youth workers in those houses. So 6 of them are currently receiving community safety wellbeing fund project funding for a total of $400,000. Which ends in 2026, and there will be a new application process this year. And 7 receive a total of $255,000, which ends in 2027 for the project funding. So staff are currently working on updating the Community Safety Wellbeing Fund project funding stream based on the new priorities of the plan, if approved by committee and council today. One of the pieces of feedback that we heard from the community funding framework midterm review and you heard today was the importance of multi-year funding, that 1 year wasn't really sufficient, that there was a requirement to have multi-years of funding to collect data, demonstrate progress, be able to evaluate programs more rigorously to show impact not just to the city, but also to other funders. The project funding streams were never meant to be sustainable funding. And so specific to the community houses, there would be an opportunity later this year to apply to the Community Safety Wellbeing Fund when that opens, as well as the sustainability funding stream in early 2027 when that funding stream opens.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. I think there was some concern that maybe the CSWB funding would not be available, but that's not the case, right? You can confirm that?
Correct. Staff are just working on updating the framework to align to the new priorities and structures outlined in the report today, but that will go out to the public in early Q2 for applications.
Perfect, thank you. And just one follow-up question from a question that Councillor Kavanaugh asked. With respect to the anchor program, you mentioned working on the expansion for the $700,000 it received in the budget, and then you talked about the work that you're doing with the Chief Financial Officer to look at funding long-term. What I didn't hear mentioned was we were previously told that there would be an evaluation of the anchor program before expansion, I thought. Do you have any details on that you can share?
We recently completed or are just finalizing the midterm evaluation for Anchor, and that would be available within Q2 of this year as well. And we're collecting regular key performance indicators that we're looking towards publishing in a public dashboard at some point in 2026 as well.
Okay, great. So that will come back to us. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. And before I ask some questions, I really just wanted to acknowledge the hard work of staff on this report and the work that they're doing on the community safety and well-being plan. As a liaison, along with Councillor Hill on the advisory board, we get extra updates in conjunction with the partners who are delivering some of these services and providing input on some of these services. And I just have to say the breadth and scope is very impressive. really pleased to see the optimization of the priorities, as well as the extensive list of programs that I hear from community members that they want action on, whether it's the gender-based violence 3-year action plan, which I've heard real interest around the finalization and launch of that program, the older adults action plan. Just this weekend I was talking with a senior who was really happy with the fact that we're looking at co-designing this type of programming. Also was speaking with youth this weekend at an event held by the Social Planning Council of Ottawa, and heard excitement around the prospect of the Youth Social Development Action Plan. So all these items are being well received, including financial empowerment. I think we heard from delegates today, and I think that the form that is proposed for this year and the idea of expanding ward coverage for tax clinics and benefit access is very important. Though there's a lot of work. Obviously, Anchor is a major component of that in terms of ongoing implementation and service improvement. And I did have a question around Anchor. We know that the provincial funding expires in 2027. The report recommends expanding Anchor, and I know that there will be a report that will come back to us around the funding models. But I think I know I'm personally interested in a bit of a preview. So I was just wondering, what is the contingency plan if funding is not renewed? And is staff actively working on a renewal application? And will committee be briefed on that process?
Chair, I'll take that question. Thanks for that question, Councillor. And I think what you heard Sarah say is that work is underway right now with community partners, the existing partners. Community assessments are being done. Data is being reviewed, and we've committed to bring back a business case. So I think the good news is that there's funding to March of 2027. And team is working hard, as we said, with financial services to bring a business case. It would be very speculative at this point to talk about what the plans are before we actually do the financial analysis.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that's being undertaken for geographic expansion of the program. I know everywhere I go, in fact, I know I was with some of my colleagues who are around this table at Ottawa Police Service public consultation on the districting model. And there were many social service agencies around the table, and they said, we need this expanded across the city. And I was wondering if they had seen my participation during the budget deliberations, but they hadn't, actually. And so I found that refreshing. I found it actually reinforced the fact that we are hearing from the community the need to invest in this type of mental health response. So I'm really pleased that staff is working hard to see that geographic expansion. I also had a question around food security. And we know that food insecurity has risen by nearly 15% to an estimated 25.7% of Ottawa households in the last 2 years. The Food Security Action Plan will not be finalized until 2028. Just wanted to have staff comment on what specific interim investments or emergency measures are in place between now and 2028 to address what the data indicates is a crisis level deterioration.
Thank you for the question. With regards to food insecurity, I would point to some of the information I shared previously with Councillor Kavanagh around the increase through the increased, in addition to COLA, through the community funding framework that Council has approved, the work we're doing with the Food Security Action Plan on applying a municipal food lens to the work. I think I'd also like to mention that as it relates to food insecurity, another aspect of that is really around financial empowerment and financial security of getting individuals and families enough money to afford food. And so I would like to highlight the ongoing efforts that staff are undertaking as it relates to the financial security pillar. So we're grateful for Council's continued investment in the tax income clinic coordination. As I mentioned previously, last year, over 6,000 tax returns were filed, and that led to $30 million in benefits that were unlocked for individuals. And at this point, with the second year investment and a strong infrastructure already in place, we're hoping to exceed those numbers this year with strong community leadership in that space. In addition, there's the Financial Security Working Group is working on a financial empowerment action plan. There's a workshop later this week with community partners to look at financial empowerment and bring together organizations across the city that are working in that space, targeting older adults, youth, newcomers, low-income families, and to see how we can collaborate and collectively work together to move that forward this year, and what opportunities the Community Safety Wellbeing Fund would have to support a project once identified.
I appreciate the interconnectedness of all of these pieces and the work that's being done, especially around financial security. I've seen that to the benefit of communities in Overbrook and in Forbes and in Carson Grove in terms of tax clinics as well as financial literacy sessions. And so I think that that is an important piece that feeds into the food security piece overall as well. I had one last question, and it just revolves around the PINS program, so the post-incident neighborhood support program that's listed for review. I'm just wondering what specific performance concerns or gaps are driving that review, and what the current caseload response times and outcome data for PINS is. And I say that with experience with PINS, having before being elected, actually working with a community association on the pilot project that created PINS, and having had actually participated in the process over the last couple of years in terms of major post-incident issues in my ward. So I was just wondering, what are the driving factors for PINS, and what will the KPIs be?
Thank you for the question. So the review and update of PINS will look at simplifying coordination mechanisms. We don't specifically have KPIs right now associated. It will be a co-design process that we work with Somerset West Community Health Center, who's the lead financial contractual agency for that program right now. Those will be developed, though, as we move through that process of co-design with the organization.
I appreciate that update, and just really wanted to put on record that I appreciate the work of PINS in terms of having a formalized process, especially when there are traumatic incidents that affect a community. It's very important to have a process that involves city services, other social service agencies, other community associations to really respond to community needs in times of crisis. So there's a lot of appreciation for that program, and I'll be very interested in seeing what the review garners. My last point, I just really want to closely associate myself with the comments that Councillor Troster has made and others around equalizing the funding in terms of co-generation of public safety. It's important that the police service have the resources that they need, but it's also very important that the social service agencies and the community service department has the resources that they need to provide services. And I think we've heard that clearly indicated today with the number of delegations that we had from the community houses. The tremendous work that they do needs to be supported properly by this council. And I know there'll be people around the council table really looking to equalize that level of funding to ensure that they can continue to deliver key services to our neighborhoods. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hill.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I do want to reinforce the comments that I've heard from all of my colleagues about the appreciation for the hard work that's gone into this impactful policy document. So thank you very much for that. I do have a specific question. I note that the report doesn't directly speak to youth diversion from the perspective of extremism or counter-radicalization. Would the community safety and well-being plan be where this type of program would be policy considered? And is this a gap that needs further reflection, or are there other organizations and programs that are looking at this issue?
Thank you very much for the question, Chair. So the Councillor Hill, specifically to that, radicalization and youth radicalization wasn't an emerging issue that we found in the data review or that came out specifically through the engagement and consultation for the refresh. We do understand it's a critical and emerging issue that's connected both to the community safety well-being plan as well as the city's efforts around anti-hate, the women and gender equity strategy, and the anti-racism strategy. At this point in time, staff are looking to better understand who are the agencies operating in this space and if there is or isn't a place for the municipality as it relates to this specific issue. You're correct, it's not something you see in the action plan currently for the next 2 years, but within that time, staff will undertake some research to better understand where it is best placed fit and what opportunities there are to, if needed, bring it out through the consultations in a different way to ensure that we are capturing emerging needs where appropriate. We have heard about the impact specifically around technology as it relates to youth mental health in other places. And that's something that we'll continue working with Ottawa Public Health on as the plan moves forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Chair. Two main points I want to make, and I want to thank Councillor King for raising pins. I wasn't going to raise this, but regrettably, critical incidents do happen across the city, and River Ward is has not been spared from these matters, particularly this year, to the first 2 homicides in River Ward. And despite being in this position for many years, I've been very unclear what PIN's role is. I'm always within 24 hours on the phone with the community health center, either in the South End or in Carlington, saying, what's the plan? Who's in charge? Who does outreach? Who's speaking to immediate communities? It always looks political if I'm there within the first 24 hours, yet I still have that care and concern that I want to connect with my residents, but not be seen as, an ambulance chaser in the political world. But even in, like I said, the more recent examples, who's the lead? Who communicates with the community? People have basic questions like, why did it happen? Who is involved? What was it about? The police provide absolutely no information, zero. And what is the police's role post-incident? So if you would consider reaching out to maybe a handful of members of council, if you're going to review sort of the PIN's mandate or response, if that's being looked at from what I heard correctly, I would be happy to share my experience. So I'll just park it there, but happy to see that. My main comment that I wanted to make is I've got 3 family houses in River Ward, Banff, Ledbury, Deborah Dines, and Caldwell. And I don't know what these communities would be like without the family houses that exist now. It's scary to consider what these communities would be like without the family houses. They are the true hubs of the community. They offer every particular service that you can think of. They are people's homes and safe places and where they feel trusted and where trust is fostered. And from if we just want to talk about finances, this is the best investment, the best return on investment that the city makes, because the city contributes peanuts. We don't blink when we give 440 million to Lansdowne or 100 million for a dump or 185 million for the new ambulance base in the West End or 45 million yesterday to a hotel, all good causes. I won't debate whether or not these are needed. Council has made these decisions or will about to make a decision in a $5.5 billion budget. And our residents who need help the most have to beg, borrow, and steal to survive. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. I can remember in my first term when the late Diane Deans chaired this committee and I was her vice chair going to Mayor Watson. You may remember this, Jessica. We wanted an additional $500,000 in the budget for social service programs. And it was like we had just insulted the mayor's parents or something, terrible, that we would ask for such a contribution or a net increase to the budget. And yet we approve other expenditures without blinking sometimes. So, when it comes to budget time, again, to the delegates today and delegates of the past who have come to speak about this, you help reinforce not just how present day investments are spent and the impact it has and the positive that comes out of it, but that this has to be maintained, if not increased. There's no doubt in my mind it has to be increased. But what I'm surprised is how much of a fight there is around this table. If we're all into politics because we want to help people and help the communities we serve, why would we debate to the length that we do debate helping the most needy in our communities? I've never been able to wrap my head around that. To staff who dedicate their careers to community services, thank you. Certainly we'll be supporting the motion before us, but at budget times in particular, we need to think about investing in areas that have the greatest impact on our residents. And the monies that we give, for example, to family houses are not just well spent, but well needed, and more is definitely required. So thank you.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chair. The tax clinics, I just wanted to comment on. I appreciate that we're investing in them. I think that's huge, especially just hearing about the new programs that the federal government's coming out with. But if people didn't fill out their tax returns, they probably would not see them. But I just wanted to ask, if we're investing in these tax clinic, can we partner that with OC Transpo, with Equipass and community passes, because they are income tested as well. And it's an opportunity when people meet the threshold of them, because I'm finding that people don't know about and it's another opportunity to grow our ridership, but really it's an opportunity for people to save money that didn't know that opportunity was there. And I'm wondering if that partnership could be looked into.
Chair, yes, we can take that back to the team to make sure there's a cross-reference or cross-check.
Thank you. I have raised it with OC Transpo, and they are doing some work, and OCH, for example, is interested as well. The community workers are happy to work on that, but it's really, if there's tax clinics, you're right there looking at people's income levels, so you know that they qualify for those passes. And like I said, I don't think a lot of people know about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Carr.
Hi, thanks. Sorry for the question, and I should know this, and I'm trying to find it, but I'm just going to ask it. The community and safety wellbeing funding, what percentage of it is generated from the Ottawa tax base, and what percentage comes from flow-through funding from other level of government?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. I'll have to get back to you on the specific percentage in terms of what we're funding through projects from other levels of government versus municipal tax base. What is covered right now currently through the municipal tax base is, as I mentioned, there are 4 permanent staff positions, $250,000 to support operations, the Community Safety Wellbeing Fund, which is a $2.3 million investment specifically. And then as well as associated, for example, the community funding framework, which contributes in some way towards the priorities as well. But I'd be happy to get back to you on a specific breakdown and the percentage of that.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Like in terms of the funding for community houses, they have some CWS, community and safety wellbeing funding. They have some project funding. They have sustainability funding. I'd be really interested in getting information on that funding. I know it's a little bit different house to house, but what percentage is actually generated from the municipal tax base and what comes from other levels of government? Like, no rush on it, but can kind of, if that can be like an unofficial request. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. I'm not seeing any further questions for staff. So is this item carried? Carried. Wonderful. Thank you to all the delegations who came today. Thank you to staff on your work on this plan. We're now going to be moving on to item 5.3, unsheltered homelessness outreach model. We do have a presentation from staff, so we will set up for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So we're very excited to bring forward our revised unsheltered homelessness outreach model to committee today. What I'll be walking through in the presentation is a high-level overview of what the new model is going to be doing in terms of our change from our current outreach support model, how it was developed, and kind of next steps in terms of what we can expect for implementation on the ground with our community partners. Next slide, please. So just to contextualize where the model lies within our current response, as you may be aware, the city developed its original unsheltered response system in around 2020 with community partners when we started seeing an increase of unsheltered homelessness across the city of Ottawa. This was not developed in isolation, so this has always fallen in with our 10-year housing and homelessness plan. And our unsheltered model that we'll be presenting today is not the entire system. Really, this system ties into our broader housing and homelessness plan that ties in things like our integrated transition to housing strategy, as well as some upcoming reports about shelter inflows and outflows and how we can best support people within the housing and homelessness system. We've actually made an immense amount of accomplishments to strengthen our system and our ability to deal with unsheltered homelessness. Through the integrated transition to housing strategy, we've added over 700 transitional housing beds, providing new options for the single shelter system to be able to come inside. We've also added 340 scattered sites all across the city, which are small base transitional housing sites, which provide services to newcomers. And we've added 318 supportive of affordable housing beds with another 815 underway. So I want to underscore that this unsheltered response does not take away our continued focus on long-term housing solutions, permanent housing solutions. That is the long-term solution to unsheltered homelessness. And again, our strategy we're presenting today is how do we get people better into those long-term solutions. We've also housed, with our current response since 2020, 996 people, so almost 1,000 people with our housing benefits program tied into this. We've also resolved just last year 462 encampments without needing to use an enforcement approach and dismantle. Next slide, please.
So we're very grateful that in 2024, through the Ottawa, Ontario deal, the city received funding through the Solicitor General to expand our current unsheltered homelessness outreach model to move to a 24/7 model that looked at both peer support, health supports that are needed, increased needle pickup, and meet a number of other needs that we are hearing through community. At that time, through our engagement with service providers, businesses, community associations, and individuals with lived and living experience, a number of strengths, but also gaps and challenges were identified with the current outreach structure. So in the fall of 2024, we began working with Bloomberg Associates nonprofit philanthropic consulting firm to support us in the design strategy for an enhanced outreach service or model that's more coordinated and really was responding to the feedback that were hearing across the board. And so they supported us with best practice research, looking at cities from San Francisco, Miami, Phoenix, Tucson, Houston. Staff then did additional research in partnership with them to look at Winnipeg, London, Ontario, Calgary, Toronto, and Simcoe County to really learn what was happening from other places and how some of those leading and best practices could be applied to our local context. In early 2025, we then began consultation and co-design across a range of sectors here locally in Ottawa. So with frontline service providers, a number of co-design sessions with funded agencies that are currently receiving funding for outreach, municipally or otherwise. We engaged with residents and businesses through online surveys and ongoing meetings and our ongoing regular engagement through different tables that they have established. We did consultations with people with lived and living experience and then had ongoing engagement with key partners such as Ottawa Police and Ottawa Public Health, who are actively working in the downtown core in this space as well.
Next slide, please. So in terms of what the focus is within this new model, really this is focused on making sure that we get people into long-term housing. So it's about addressing the needs of unsheltered homelessness by bringing them the housing supports required. This does include referrals of things like health, mental health services, addiction treatment services to ensure that they can stabilize and be able to move into the available long-term housing we create through the 10-year housing and homelessness plan. We're also looking to enhance community engagement and stewardship of public spaces. When we had originally started this plan, we saw a very low number of unsheltered homelessness. There was around 50 people that we had dealt with in 2020, and now we're up close to 550 in 2025. So this has really been an exponential increase. And with that exponential increase, we want to recognize the ongoing impact of the surrounding communities where there's high concentrations of unsheltered homelessness. So in this new model, we're really looking to address making sure that not only are we responsive to the clients that we serve in terms of the people we're trying to move into long-term housing, but also addressing the needs of the surrounding communities who are impacted having their public spaces taken. We're also looking to align our resource allocation and performance measurement. Our strategy since 2020 has continued to evolve through multiple different iterations of funding from federal, provincial, and municipal levels. And that's really how we got to a point where the funding models were not well aligned. And with this new model, we're looking to look at clear under contract forward way to make sure that all of our unsheltered homelessness services are working towards those same goals, objectives, and reporting data in a comprehensive model. We're also looking to make sure that we increase our outreach service coordination. So in doing so, I'll provide a little bit more detail, but making sure that we don't have many different outreach providers under many different contracts with many different sources of funding. We're looking to really amalgamate this under one comprehensive strategy. We're looking to strengthen alignment internally within the City of Ottawa with other city departments that support our unsheltered response, like emergency services, park services, public works. And we're also looking to reduce service gaps with when residents report issues in their community. We want to help them understand, one, the process the City of Ottawa takes to address those issues with clients, but also how their request is going to be serviced through the community. We also want to create a reliable single point of contact for entries. As it stands now, a lot of our partners directly take service requests. So with this new model, we'll be looking to streamline things, having the city take on the responsibility of being the one dispatch service that will ensure that whether it's a community need or a client need, that we're making sure the appropriate services are dispatched. We're also going to be tracking issues and enhancing our information sharing. And really around that, we want to continue to build on some of the great work we've done through our housing and homelessness plan on having public-facing dashboards about the success we're having as a sector and with our community partners. I want to also mention that this does not include this review, an update to our Indigenous outreach service provider model. That is something that is going to remain separate and distinct, and we're going to be working with them on finding mutually agreeable integration points, making sure that we continue to provide culturally sensitive services to Indigenous community members from Indigenous providers. Next slide, please. So this slide outlines what we are going to be changing from status quo to where we will be headed. So a big piece of what we're doing, as I'd mentioned, is aligning the service providers to be one main contract. So we are going to be issuing an RFO for outreach services that will hold the lead. We'll have a lead contract holder that will coordinate with all the outreach teams, peer programs, embedded health supports, with clear roles, city branding, performance measurements, and public reporting. Will also be established to ensure equitable service delivery that reflects the needs of individual communities, using a data-led approach, and including a focus on making sure that we're able to offer bilingualism services, as well as services to people like newcomers or people with special needs, addiction treatment services, or health requirements. The service is going to continue to be a 24/7 support, so we're continuing to look to keep our investments at the same level in doing data-led dispatch of our services. So again, creating a data model that we can make sure that we're allocating our resources to the community needs where they're needed most, as well as for the clients. Our frontline outreach services will be wearing purple vests, so it will have a common branding so that anyone in the community, whether they're a client that needs support or a house resident, that they're able to easily identify and understand the city's approach to supporting unsheltered homelessness. We'll also have leverage a one-time data system. So we currently have our homelessness information individuals and family system, which will be leveraged to provide a one-stop data point and system that we can then use to feed those public dashboards where we're reporting on progress and also triaging community concerns and complaints. Again, the key focus of this is the long-term solution to unsheltered homelessness is going to continue to be housing focused. So connecting residents who choose not to access available shelter spaces directly into housing services, programs like our housing benefits programs, rent geared to income, and the housing registry. Again, the city's also going to be taking on a lead role in doing the dispatch and coordination of these services in terms of when things come in from the public. So residents will be able to call 311 and press 2 and be directly connected with one of our outreach service providers to be able to dispatch the team. So that will come through the city, and then we will do it on their behalf and also track the progress on responding to that call. The last thing I want to mention is that we're also, in order to do this, slightly moving towards having the community engagement team to not be a frontline outreach service provider. They will still provide a role in terms of some frontline service delivery, working with the community to develop plans, address problematic areas, but they are going to be doing that coordination work, and our work in terms of the actual client outreach and services the community will through that one outreach service provider. The unsheltered homelessness outreach model, again, will align to our updated housing and homelessness plan, which will come in March. It is a continuation of a lot of the great work that was happening through the closeout of our integrated transition to housing strategy. And again, aligns with a lot of the work police is doing through their core strategy, and the City of Ottawa strategic plan is making sure everyone has access to long-term housing. Next slide, please. So in terms of the funding, really what one of the main pretexts was to updating our unsheltered model, in addition to some of the demands we've seen changed in the city, we received $7.6 million from the Ministry of the Solicitor General as part of the Ottawa, Ontario agreement to enhance outreach services in the downtown core. So year 1 and 2 of that funding was now delivered through existing service contracts, and we're updating this model to be able to, in year 3, move to this new idea. And then in terms of how we're going to be funding this on an ongoing basis is making sure that our federal investments through Health Canada, Crime Prevention Action Fund, the Unsheltered Homelessness Encampment Initiative, as well as provincial investments such as the Economic Development Revitalization Funding through the Solicitor General, in the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing will continue. So we'll be working with corporate and finance services to make sure that we have a funding strategy ongoing. However, in the next years, we do have a strategy to undertake a collaborative process to reissue that RFO funding at our current funding levels, to be able to assign one service agency who will be providing that frontline service in the community. So really what's going to be happening on the back end is that we're going to ensure that these multiple funding pockets are aligned under one strategy, one strategic priority, one contract that the city will oversee, and ensure there's public reporting around that. We're also going to be looking at renewed funding commitments from senior levels of government. There has been several new funding pockets becoming potentially available, so city staff will continue to look at opportunities and apply for those when they are available. And as the last piece, as this rolls out, we're going to be working closely with the Indigenous community and our Indigenous service providers to figure out how we can make sure that we have appropriate referral mechanisms in and out of Indigenous services. Next slide, please. So in terms of timing of when this is going to be implemented, so pending approval from committee and council, we will be moving to issue that RFO for the single agency. So we anticipate that that will be issued in Q1 2026. So we'll be moving along quite quickly on that. We're going to be looking to pilot the centralized intake and dispatch throughout Q1 2026. Then implement a community engagement strategy during that same period to kind of test, make sure that it's working well. Develop a public reporting framework for Q1 2026. Again, that will be tied in with our 10-year housing and homelessness plan. Finalize the planning for the unsheltered homelessness objectives, issuing contracts to have the plan ready in Q3 2026. So that would actually be the rollout of the new service model with the new agency. And then we will be issuing contract and implementation plan by Q4 2026. And that's when you're going to see people on the ground. And then really we move into monitor and evaluation, similar to where we've been since 2020. This is something that's been evolving in the city and our approach needs to change with that. So we're going to continue to work with those community partners, community agencies, community programs that support this work to be able to deliver on it, make sure that we're responsive to the changing data and update the response as needed. But this will be a much more clear framework that we can work on as a city that is much more responsive to the needs we're seeing in 2025. I think that's our last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have a motion that I was hoping to have read in just to further any discussion from Councillor Plante. Yeah, we'll get it up on the screen first.
Be it resolved that the report recommendations be amended to add recommendation 4 as followed, that the Community Service Committee recommend Council 4 receive the memorandum dated February 20th, 2026, in which staff respond to the October 8, 2025 Council direction on encampment responses attached as document 1 to this report. Be it further resolved that the memorandum be added to the report as document 1. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. So now we'll move to questions to staff. Councillor Carr.
Thank you very much. Fantastic to hear about all the work. Very much appreciated. I know we've given the Clara's area a really heavy lift, I think, over the last few years with all the work that's being done on community and safety well-being and on transition to housing, and now this outreach coordination in addition to everything else. And it sounds very promising, the coordination of outreach. I know it's something that many of us have asked about over the table, in particular the downtown councillors, Councillor Plante and Councillor Troster, in terms of how this work gets coordinated. I've just got a few questions on how it could potentially work. It talked in there about system level coordination as opposed to program level coordination. Is this something that you feel that we will be able to work with these individuals and actually be able to sort of incorporate them on a systems level with our, with our HIFIS system in terms of housing? Like, what does the interface between the outreach and Housing First, how is that all going to work together?
Thank you for the question, Chair. So yes, this is going to be at a systems level, and really what we're looking to do is create a streamlined pathway into the city's coordinated access system. So as part of Housing First, that's essentially our service prioritization system for all housing and homelessness services. So through this strategy, we're going to be more directly tying in all of our frontline serving agencies into this one RFO. That will then have that direct access into, as you mentioned, HIFIS being our data system, which is where our coordinated access system is housed in terms of that service prioritization. So it'll be tied back into priorities, things like that, getting them on the list as early as possible so that they get in line for services that are oversubscribed.
Okay, and I think I read in the report that there was 141 individuals housed last year from in 2025. Like, we don't have a tremendous amount of housing options available right now. But those 141 that were housed, that were talked about in the report, how were they, like, were they housed from the street? You're not including into a shelter, but do you include into transitional housing? Are you including into supportive housing? What sort of housing types were those 141 people? And were those just people identified by the city? Those don't include people, for example, through Salvation Army or Mission? If you could just speak to that a little bit.
Thank you, Chair. So those would be clients identified through the Salvation Army as our primary outreach provider. We also have several Indigenous providers who also would identify people into this system. In terms of where they are housed to, most often within that 141, it would have been private market housing with housing-based case management support. So many folks who are matched directly from unsheltered homelessness into housing, depending on their need level, would be provided housing-based case management matching. So essentially somebody who provides life such support in private market housing with a rent supplement or a housing benefit. There is several people, I don't have the percentages on hand, but I could get back to you with that are housed into supportive housing. But as we know, the wait lists are quite long there. So what we really try and do is make sure that we work with housing providers, private market housing providers, especially when that need level isn't so high that you require supportive housing, to get them paired with housing benefits, get them on the housing registry so they're eligible for that line of services.
Okay, thanks very much. And actually, this came up last night at the Ottawa Police Service Board meeting in context of some of the social disorder and the unfortunate incident that happened at Rideau Street. I had some questions. I will tell you that the Ottawa Police Service, the chief did say that this was going to be amazing coordination outreach and was very impressed with the work. So my concern is, so can you speak a little bit about how the situation tables are going to work in that interface, the need for them, and how privacy considerations are managed?
Thank you for the question. So in terms of the situation table specifically, it has a framework and training and structure around how cases are brought forward for that specific reason to protect privacy. So anyone who's participating or bringing individuals to the situation table will have gone through that training. So we understand from our conversations with Ottawa Police Services that that is a priority for them, that they're looking to train and increase the number of officers trained who can bring cases forward. From a broader governance perspective, as it relates to this model, we are looking to work collaboratively across police, community partners, and other sectors. We've done an initial analysis of what are all of the tables and working groups that exist right now that are touching on this as it relates to outreach. And how can we better align them in more of a structure and model so that, the on-the-ground meetings at the Neighborhood Operations Center, for example, every day are feeding into the situation table, which can feed up to higher level strategic discussions at a, director and comparable level so that operations are feeding strategy and vice versa. And that's work that we've discussed with Ottawa Police, and we know they and other partners are interested in streamlining.
Okay, thanks very much. And so did you only work with city-funded outreach teams? Because there's a lot of volunteer outreach teams that distribute items. Was there any connection with those groups at all?
Thank you, Chair. So we convene currently and still our Unsheltered Task Force. So that's really a group. There's two. There's a core members group, which is really focused with those internal city partners, core funded partners. But the Unsheltered Task Force currently has, I think, 92 members. I forget what we had in the memo. So it is quite broad. And really, we see that as being one of the ongoing mechanisms to integrate the non-funded agencies in the community. I will say some of the I'll say views in terms of how we do outreach don't always align with some of those, I'll say charitably funded groups or people who are doing this out there. However, we do communicate regularly with them through Unsheltered Task Force. I don't want to call it a newsletter, but essentially updates and minutes through that group on what the city's approach is. And I'll just give an example, like when we go do these things with the Purple Vest, for example, they were engaged in these over a year and a half on these different engagement sessions where we talk about what's working, what's not, and the gaps. So they have been engaged throughout the process. They don't necessarily always align with what the city strategy is, but it's something we try and keep them informed, and as well they keep us informed of where there might be gaps with our service system.
Okay, yeah, I wondered a little bit about that just in terms of like this coordinated outreach that you presented seems to be really focused on sort of the housing first, looking for housing. And I know, we have volunteer outreach groups, well-meaning that distribute tents and sleeping bags. And so sometimes it doesn't seem as if the working towards the same goals. And so can anyone belong to the Unsheltered Task Force? That membership is open to any like voluntary outreach group?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. All right. I think I'll leave it there for now and I might come back on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the work you're doing. I really appreciate the streamlining of the systems. I think that will make a difference. I think that will be very positive, and I appreciate all the work that's going into it and the investment. I'm curious about the makeup of our homeless population. Do we, you obviously have some data on this, but it strikes me that there's a higher percentage of women that are homeless. Maybe it's, I'm concerned, and I just wanted to know if that's the case.
Thank you, Chair. I'll speak to the single shelter system because it's a little bit different on the family side. It's certainly largely overrepresented by males by a long shot. To give you a sense, we have about 4 of our permanent shelters that serve males only, and about 1.5 that serve females. So it is much overrepresented by men. I will just mention that we are seeing an increasing trend of women, which is why we've been updating and kind of integrating the new transitional housing we have and transitioning floors to be women when we start to see that increase in demand. So it is a changing trend we're seeing, but still largely overrepresented by men.
Thank you. Previously, we saw, ballooning numbers from asylum seekers and refugees. Is that no longer the case?
Thank you, Chair. So we see in the single shelter a pretty marked decline in the terms of number of asylum seekers. However, in the family shelter system, we continue to see a high degree. So we're still around 70% on the family shelter system, and we're currently operating, depending on whether it's men or women, around 35 to 40% on the single side.
Thank you. Now, I do worry when I hear that the shelter, in my ward is full, and this is the women's shelter Cornerstone. And I wonder what happens if they're turned away. And I'm just concerned about that. I don't know what we do in terms of diversion and offering beyond that, but it is very, very full, like bunk beds, the whole thing. So what happens to those that cannot, where they can't find a bed there?
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a good opportunity to bring up, you mentioned diversion. This is something many of you saw. The Alliance to End Homelessness led some work that was city funded. There was a number of community partners involved in this large initiative. This is something we're planning to do a lot more of, really refining our approach of how we do diversion. We do fund and have for the last 5+ years funded diversion workers within shelters. However, it's very tough to divert people if there's no housing to divert them to. In terms of what we've done on the shelter side of things, Cornerstone, when they approach fullness, We've actually converted one of the floors of Queen Street to be exclusively to women. So we do up capacity based on the need we're seeing in the community. The other thing we've done is when we hear often in the community, very unfortunately, community members are told a shelter is full. So we've actually implemented a process over this winter where people who call 311 and press 2 after hours are directly connected with a staff on my team who actually calls around to the shelters to make sure that we find anyone who needs a space that's available. So that could include transitional housing, could include space at Shepherd's Good Hope, it could include scattered sites. So there's a lot of different options we have on our menu. And then we also have backup options, be it hotels, that kind of thing, if there are no options within the single shelter system.
I realize there's some that are homeless that do not want to go to shelters and they continue to use encampments, et cetera. And one of the reasons is, and that this comes up all the time, is they have a pet. They have a dog usually. And this is very difficult. I understand that. I don't know if it's widespread or not, but I keep coming across this issue.
Thank you, Chair. I would certainly say in terms of unsheltered homelessness, it is one of the most frequent things that we hear from folks, especially we know there's an increase in the homeless population, prevalence of mental health, addiction concerns, and a lot of the time that pet is the companion. That's something they need in order to support their coping mechanisms. Unfortunately, we do not have broadly shelters that can offer services to pets. However, we do accommodate, and all shelters are required to accommodate service animals that are documented. And then we also do have services that we work with in the community who will foster pets through different family members who are all licensed. There's quite a rigorous process to get involved with that to foster the pets temporarily. One of the things we do look at whenever we do, I'll say, build a new shelter, like for example, some of the things we've looked at, we do try and integrate options for pets, but one of the challenges when we're doing these types of builds or renovations, there's a lot of concerns around health, safety, that kind of thing with the staff. So we try and manage that with the available services in the community.
Thank you. Appreciate all the work. And of course, the end goal is to get everybody housed permanently. And that's what we want. But I appreciate the work that's being done at this level. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Troster.
Thank you so much. So you all know I'm very excited about this model. You've all heard me say many times, I feel like I run an emergency dispatch for my email, and I'm very excited to not do that anymore. We've spoken about the housing focus of these services, which is of course incredibly important, but I also want to speak a bit about the community security piece, because right now you can't directly call an outreach worker. They have to just sort of stumble upon a situation, or I can, sometimes people email me and I end up texting outreach workers from random organizations, but of course there's very many and there isn't one central dispatch. So through this new system, will an everyday resident be able to call for assistance from an outreach worker?
Thank you, Chair. So that's going to be managed through this city. So we're not going to have direct, like residents wouldn't call an outreach worker directly through this. It would be the city who would dispatch. And really the reason we want to do that is there's constant staffing changes, that kind of thing. And we want to take on the burden of managing who should I call for various issues on the city side of things. So one of the things you're well aware of, like, should it be a call to anchor? Should it be 211,
Right.
311? We want our city staff to take that on for residents who often get frustrated by being bounced around between city
But
departments.
24 hours a day, they will be able to call a dispatch that will send someone to help.
That's correct.
Excellent. That is huge news. Something else I've talked about is the need for some sort of visible uniform, vest, color, no matter which organization somebody might work for, but if they are part of this constellation of outreach workers, is there a plan for some sort of visible presence? So if you see someone walking down the street, you've seen someone who needs assistance, you could be like, oh, that's my helper, and you can call them over for help.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's purple vests. I even have the color.
Purple vest. I love a purple vest. Okay. How will this help residents and businesses resolve day-to-day conflicts in the downtown core? So I'll tell you about some ones that I've heard about recently. People who are very, very frustrated. And very often what they ask for is, we just want more visible police presence, like just sort of walking around and being there. And police often explain that what they do is respond to calls. They can't just sort of be on hand. So one example was a woman who was very frustrated because a a woman had set up a sleeping bag and was sleeping beside her house, and she discovered that there was an encampment beside her house. The one I hear about all the time is public drug use in front of schools in particular. Conflict too. So it might not be at the crisis level that you want to call police or anchor, but you see an argument is about to heat up. There's a bunch of people gathered on the sidewalk. Are those reasons why you could call this service to have an outreach worker dispatched to assist with that conflict?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, these outreach workers are kind of the first point of contact. I do want to be clear, though, they will have limits into what they can do. So they don't have enforcement for public drug use capabilities. Really, what they're looking to do is work with the client to help them move along, to suggest something else, to provide alternative options. But yes, they can be called for all of this type of thing. And one of the things that's really the strength of this model is around the coordination. So where I'll say the social services intervention doesn't work, where we may need a police enforcement, whether for a dismantle, whether for public drug use, the other kind of things, through this government model, working with police, bylaw services, and a more linear enhanced service with our partners, we'll be able to be much more on board with things like this situation table to make sure that, again, where that social services intervention was not successful in providing a long-term solution, that we can bring in other enforcement mechanisms if required, of course, as a last resort.
Okay. And will there be an expectation of a response time built into this model?
Thank you, Counselor. So to set expectations, it isn't an emergency service. So it's not a van with flashing lights that will, be coming quickly. And because it's new, it will likely take time to understand what a response time is in a service standard. And that's something that we'll monitor through the data and the key performance indicators, and can communicate back publicly in terms of expectation setting. But you would be looking to something more similar to Anchor, not an immediate, 30-second response or otherwise.
Okay. I mean, Anchor does have a standard, though. I do believe it. They try to respond within 10 minutes, correct?
We'll be happy to consult with the current outreach providers to understand their standards, what they've communicated, and look at how something, at least a framework, can be applied as we move into implementation.
Okay, just because I think everyone's definition of emergency is different. And certainly this is not send an ambulance immediately, but I don't know, if someone's on your porch using drugs and shouldn't be there, you kind of want someone to come not in 4 hours, maybe in 10 minutes. If there are people who have set up an encampment and are using drugs in front of your child's classroom, as has happened to me 2 years in a row at parent-teacher night at my daughter's school, you do want someone to come relatively quickly, again, not sirens ablazing, but certainly not 3 hours. So I really want to emphasize that a service standard needs to be built into this. I know my community, Councillor Plant's community, want an expectation of a response. And if they're not getting it from police, and in most cases, it shouldn't be a police response, they need to know someone's going to come. The other question is, how will you be simplifying the dispatch? Because my understanding is you want to program this through 311. Well, I don't know about you. When I call 311, even using my backdoor number as a counselor, there can often be like a whole bunch of different choices and a long wait. For downtown residents who are calling for outreach support, will there be some sort of like expedited dispatch or way to get through to people more quickly? Or are you just going to have to wait on the line and go through all the options?
Thank you, Chair. So again, we're looking to move our community engagement team staff towards doing some of this work. We don't have in terms of like what the service timelines are, and that's something we're going to have to monitor moving into it. I will just want to comment on your last piece of information. So one of the things we're trying to build in as part of this is that the person calling will get a response back in terms of response time, essentially. So one of the things that's very unknown, and we probably all see this in our communities, is there's some times where we may have 15 calls all within a 15-minute period, and then for 3 hours, there's nothing. So that's where it's tough. We can set a service standard, but to Sarah's point, I think really monitoring the data, seeing like when those peak hours are, do we need to adjust staffing around that, will come as we start to roll this out under one outreach provider. Right now, because there are so many different outreach providers, we can't get that level of data and focus in on what that response would be.
I have a lot of questions, so I'll wrap up in a few minutes, go to Councillor Plant, come back, obviously, because this touches my neighborhood. Is the intention for this to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the service will continue to be similar to Salvation Army, a 24-hour model.
Excellent. And my last question is, as we know from the City Auditor General's report on supportive housing and also just my day-to-day experience working in my office, it's often the person in the worst shape who's not getting housing. So if you have someone who's repeatedly a source of conflict, but who is being denied housing, who can't just be put in private market housing with a light touch support, who really needs 24-hour support, and there's a ton of outreach and police calls related to them, what are we doing for that person? Because frankly, that is the person who is so unwell that they're screaming on the street, so unwell that they are engaging in frightening behavior. And the longer they remain unhoused, the worse it is for them. So will this strategy have any sort of ability to sort of prioritize or triage that kind of housing for people in the worst shape?
Thank you, Chair. I think for the folks you're referring to, the most unwell, part of the strategy needs to be, as the supportive housing audit indicated, support sites where we have the adequate level of medical support, which we don't currently have for some individuals. Really, as part of the audit recommendations, what we are tasked to bring in is how do we make sure that everybody who is on that supportive housing wait list has an appropriate space to go into, and making sure that our resources are allocated both on the capital and operating side to meet those requirements. So what we're layering on right now with the Social Housing Network, who's leading this work with us in the supportive housing audit, is how do we bring in a prioritization to deal with those most in need, and or making sure like each supportive housing building takes one of those individuals. So really we're having a key focus on equity of how do we get those people off the list that have been on there for a long time as part of that strategy.
Thank you so much. And many of them might be so disenfranchised that they're not on a list at all. And I guess my concern is how do we make sure that we still give that person priority if they're still in the worst shape? Because, as you know, you need to keep your HIFIS paperwork update, or you need to keep your waitlist paperwork updated every year. But the longer you're on the street, the more disenfranchised you are, the less likely you are to actually even be in the system anymore. Anyway, thank you so much. I'll go to Councillor Plum for now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Blunt.
Yes, hi. I think it's two questions I have. I'm going to read a portion of the report and then I'm going to ask my question. So one of the recommendations is implement a public reporting to convey information about responses to community challenges downtown. A public reporting framework will develop to establish a process for making routine reports on activity and performance and communicating progress to the public through accessible dashboards and other transparent reporting tools. And then further down, you say this improved outreach model will play a meaningful role in the revitalization of the Byward market by supporting city broader goals of creating welcoming, accessible, and people-oriented public spaces. As the Byward market undergoes major public realm enhancements, stronger outreach services will help ensure that these spaces are comfortable and safe for everyone who uses them. This includes working collaboratively with the Byward Market District Authority to align efforts. So if I'm reading all of this correctly, there is no recommendation to speed up dismantles especially in the downtown core where you're still sticking with the 5-day framework, correct?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that's correct.
So the situation we see often is where someone is in an encampment and then they know the 5 days are coming up, so they move their encampment 10 meters. So it's considered a new encampment, and then that encampment can stay for 30, sometimes 30 days plus. There's no recommendation to deal with that, correct?
Thank you, Chair. So what we're really looking to do is identify early through this strategy in terms of where those encampments are and make sure that we have a quicker start, I'll say, to that process. As we'd indicated in the attached memo, which you read in, it is very expensive to do the dismantle process. And we've kind of indicated the rough costing with the various internal city departments involved in doing a dismantle if we were to even move to a 10 dismantles per week model. And again, just to give context as per the memo, at any given time, we typically have about 50 encampments across the city. So even with an additional $5+ million investment, we're still not going to be meeting a 5-day turnaround for dismantle. And the reason we chose to do that strategy through the research, through the requirements we have through the Superior Court to provide outreach services first, is really around moving from a location, whether it be 10 meters or to a different park in the same part of another neighborhood. The long-term solution is really housing. And what you kind of saw from this, one of the strengths we have is that we did 85% of our dismantles through voluntary dismantles. And that works by building a relationship with the client and convincing them to move along. Now, I won't say with a 10-meter dismantle, in my opinion, that's not appropriate. We expect them to move far away from where they were. Sometimes we do see in extreme cases a block to block, but that's really where we do want to, again, when the social services intervention has not worked, we would work with police partners, that kind of thing, to be more formalized on the enforcement approach with a certain area if that comes up. And that's the strength of this model, is we're being a lot more intentional of those partnerships.
Okay, and then my second question is, in the example that Councillor Troster gave, where someone is openly doing drugs on your front porch, it's great that we have now an outreach model, but legislatively, those outreach workers cannot tell that person to move or force them to move in any way, shape, or form, correct?
Thank you, Chair. They can tell them to move, they can't force them to move.
Okay. And then, I'm just a little concerned that this will, and don't get me wrong, it's great that we are aligning everything. It's great that we will, have more better reporting tools. I actually think that's very good. I'm just at a loss as to how this will improve the situation downtown, which you guys even cited something like 65% of residents do not feel safe going out at night. 41% says the neighborhood has not improved. I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around how that will change. And if you could comment, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to be clear, we're not bringing this as staff saying this will solve all of the problems. I think what we've heard around the table is that there's systemic issues to solve, dealing with the mental health addiction crisis. What this will, I think, do a vast improvement for is when residents put in their service requests, we've heard time and time again that they feel it goes into a black hole, whether it be through 311 online reporting or calling 311, is they never hear anything. It's been weeks and weeks. That's what we're trying to eliminate, is what is the city's approach, helping people understand that the process we need to go through for the various reasons we've described in this report to do it. It also, again, having those closer linkages and more intentional approach with groups like the Ottawa Police Services for the enforcement side, the situation table, as Sarah had mentioned, is really going to help us suss out who are those 10 very high needs individuals causing the most problems, and coming up with an individual service plan for those individuals. So I think, especially in your ward, Councillor, we do see some repeat offenders, we'll call it, individuals that are causing these issues, and these more tight partnerships on the city side, but also having one outreach service provider will help us know, okay, well, it's Joe that my team has seen over and over and over again. When there's 9 partners, it may be 9 partners interacting with Joe. So we don't have that rich data to say who are these individuals causing the most problems, so that we can come up with an enhanced service plan for them.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Troster. Thank you. Apologize, but lots of questions because this is so important to my neighborhood. Without asking for a comprehensive list, do you have a rough estimate of how many organizations and outreach workers this change will affect? You said, I mean, we got dozens of organizations that touch the street in downtown Ottawa. Do we have a sense of sort of like what this workforce is going to look like? Like how many people are going to be out there and available to help at any given time?
Thank you, Chair. No, that will be determined through the RFO with the service providers. One of the things important to note is that it'll be similar service levels to what we have now, as we're looking to maintain a similar service investment. So right now, we currently have at any given time, there's 3 Salvation Army vans, as well as the Storm van, which is an Indigenous service provider, as well as Wabano also provides some outreach services. So currently there's 7 different organizations. Typically they work at minimum in pairs. So to give you a sense, again, I'm very much ballparking based on the contracts.
I mean, I can already name
20.
In my ward, there's also Center 507. There's the Somerset West Community Health Center. There's the Centertown Community Health Center. So, I mean, it just, I would hope we're looping all of those groups in. Your data-based approach, will that lead to these outreach workers when they're not responding to a call, walking kind of a regular beat in the neighborhood in areas where we know there's a challenge? Like one of the major issues in my ward and probably in Councillor Plante's is school start and school end times, right? Like how do we keep school zones safe? How do we protect the neighborhood and make it okay for kids to walk home from school? Like, is there a potential based on the data and what we know and then what we start hearing to have these folks around certain areas at certain times of the day?
Thank you, Chair. So yes, I think the big part of this data model is going to help is we're going to be able to identify hotspots. We're going to see where residents are reporting, what street corners, what times of day that these reports are coming in. And that's going to help us really know, like, where do they need to be walking around? I want to be clear that as an outreach worker, just because you're not dealing with a client, you're still going around looking for a client if you're not immediately dealing with one. But again, the data and reporting, and even this year, we moved to the 3-on-1 online reporting system that does geotag. So this is going to be a further enhancement to that to really start heat mapping of like, where do we need the focus most? And we intend this to be a data informed strategy, like as we move through, as we do those service plans with clients and communities around hotspot issues.
That's great. So from the report, it says the governance of the coordinated outreach model will operate under a shared governance structure between the Community and Social Services Department and key components of the OPS's core initiatives. I've definitely had some residents and outreach workers flag concerns about that. So could you speak about what degree the OPS will be involved in the governance of this model? What legislative requirements are there? I mean, similar to Anchor, I'm assuming the first line response would not be police, correct?
Thank you for the question, Chair. So as it relates to the governance, the shared governance or coordinated governance is really an opportunity to coordinate across institutions, sectors, groups that are working in this space to more effectively and efficiently align resources. So it would be similar to Anchor. We're not looking for a police response, but more collaboration between, for example, Ottawa Police and outreach to identify hotspots. When is outreach going through? When are police going through? To have more of that on the ground coordination. And then also to be aligning, as I mentioned, for example, with other tables such as the situation table of how clients and individuals are being brought forward, but also bringing that up to a higher level. So how strategically, or those who are doing the systems planning, reviewing hotspot data to understand how we're deploying resources across the city. So it isn't about the day-to-day enforcement or not enforcement. It's really an attempt to align our systems to the most effective use of municipal resources across all of those institutions, and also really the right type of response. So what types of services, expertise are needed for individuals, and working collaboratively to get that sort of response to them.
So this fictional Joe that we're talking about, right? Like if police are being called to him repeatedly, if outreach workers are, finding him in multiple different locations, encamping himself or using public drugs or using drugs in public, my assumption is that situation table would try to find a tailor-made solution. And if necessary, give him priority when it comes to supportive housing when it's available.
Yes, that is the idea.
You just really one more question. I'm a little bit worried about the impact to existing programs and staff. I know, for example, at Somerset West, we recently funded their peer outreach program, which has been enormously successful in Chinatown. And these are folks with lived and living experiences who might not be a typical hire for like a city-based program, but they do that on the ground work that's really valuable. I'm just wondering, will there be a plan to continue these peer outreach programs and incorporate them into the model? Is there a way to retain that valuable involvement of people with lived experience?
Thank you for the question, Chair. So yes, there's an intention through the model to have a peer support and peer relationship component within it. Research demonstrates the effectiveness of that. As you mentioned, Somerset West has seen a lot of success through that. It provides training, pathways to employment, and a success story for a number of individuals as a pathway to care. So we do see it as a critical component of the program. While there will be one lead agency who will have hold the contract with the city, we are open to subcontracting that would be managed collectively through that to have more localized approaches, but that would be up to agencies to come together for that purpose.
Okay, I just want to emphasize how important that is, because that micro local knowledge is really, really important. And, also just to reassure the people who work as frontline workers on the front line that their jobs are not at risk, that we value their work, that we're just trying to make it easier to do their jobs and easier to help people in the community. So anyway, I want to thank city staff because I've been begging for something like this for 3 years. And I really look forward to the day where we can just call 311 to get the help that we need, or 211 or 911. And I'll just say we'll have to do a lot of education in the community about who to call. So thank you so much for all your work on this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair, and I also appreciate the rationalization of the approach in terms of having a lead provider as enumerated under this report. But I'm just wondering, how will the city ensure that smaller community-based organizations with deep neighborhood roots but limited administrative capacity are not systematically disadvantaged by the RFO procurement process?
Thank you for the question, Chair. One of the things we're looking to do with this RFO is it's not going to be city staff going into a closed room and developing. It's something we want to work with those community partners, similar to what I know Somerset West is a rather large organization, but there is an immense amount of groups out there doing really important work that we don't have the local knowledge for. So when we go to design this RFO, it will be done with that community facing approach of we are not the service delivery experts as a city, and we're really going to need their feedback to make sure that it's responsive to what's going to be effective in the community.
I appreciate that, and I think that's responsive to some of the concerns that I've heard from smaller organizations who do wonderful outreach work and just want to ensure that they are part of that continuing ecosystem despite the change to the structure. I think that the change is very logical, like I said, but ensuring that we retain space for those smaller organizations is key. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions, we do have the amending motion before us. Is the amendment carried?
Carried.
Carried. And is the report carried as amended?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you to staff for all your hard work on this. Appreciate it. We're now moving on to 5.4, Long-Term Care Accountability Agreement with Ontario Health. And we do not have any presentations or any motions, but I understand Councillor Kavanagh would like to say a word.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've been working on the committee with long-term care. And I just want to give a shout out to the changes that they have made for person-centered care at all 4 of our long-term care facilities. And a special thank you to Dean Lett, who recently retired. So he's not probably able to listen because he's probably enjoying his retirement, but he showed a lot of leadership, and we've done a lot of good work as a city in making the residents in these facilities have a better life and have a home. So I just wanted to say thank you to all those who were working on that team. Thank you.
That's excellent. I'm sure his entire team is listening, because I know Clara had a bit of a heads up to let them tune in. So thank you for that. Okay, so is that item carried?
Carried.
Carried. 6.1, status update, inquiries and motions for the period ending February 6, 2026. Is that item received? Received. Wonderful. We have no in-camera items, and I'm not aware of any notices of motion. We do have a few inquiries. So 9.1, I'd invite Vice Chair Bradley to read your inquiry in, Madam. And I think we're just getting it on the screen.
Thanks so much. And I'm moving this on behalf of Councillor Gower. So some children's play structures adjacent to off-leash recreation areas are protected by a fence, while many are not. How does the city decide where to install protective fencing adjacent to off-leash areas? And 2, what considerations, financial or otherwise, would prevent Ottawa from adding fencing around all play structures adjacent to off-leash areas?
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. 9.2, we have an inquiry from Councillor Carr.
Okay, in light of the city's interest in purchasing the former hotel located at 377 O'Connor, which would be used as transitional housing for families, could staff please provide the following information? 1, how many families are presently in the City of Ottawa Family Shelter System, including both designated family shelter spaces and overflow spaces? 2, what is the average family size currently accessing the family shelter system? 3, what is the average length of stay for a family in the family shelter system? 4, what is the longest stay presently recorded for a family in the system? 5, including the Corkstown Family Transitional Housing, how many active service agreements are currently in place with external providers, for example, with motels? Number 6, what supports and services are provided to families residing in the family shelter system, for example, meals, transit services, etc. 7, which languages or services available for residents in the family shelter system. 8, over the past 12 months, how many families have exited the family shelter system for the following reasons? 1, secured a rent geared to income unit. 2, accepted another housing benefit, for example, COB. Or 3, other. Please specify the reasons if possible.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. The next inquiry is also yours, insurance for invasive species removal.
Yeah, just to clarify, yeah, it's about insurance, to be honest. But community groups undertake community gardening initiatives under the City of Ottawa's Community Gardens Program, receive coverage under the Community Partnership Insurance Program, even if they are not a registered community association. However, community groups who remove invasive plants from green spaces under a stewardship agreement from forestry do not. Both programs promote biodiversity, native plant gardening, and stewardship of city lands. Could city staff please report back on why one program is eligible and the other is not, and provide information on what would be necessary in order to have these groups removing invasive plants under a stewardship agreement be eligible? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. We have no other business. Our next meeting is the special joint meeting of the Planning and Housing Committee and the Community Services Committee. That's on Tuesday, March 24th. And then followed by that, we'll have our regular Community Services Committee meeting on Tuesday, April 28th. Are we adjourned? Sure. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.